Fridays, or when he's just speaking, coming out.
He wears it almost every day.
When he's coming out in State House. The day when he was hosting that conference on Monday, he was fully suited.
I guess there are people who advise on such matters.
Come on, Mr. President. Is it that you can't wear whatever he's made to wear for
Tell him, Mr.
body
President,
protection?
You need to wear that blue suit.
No, even under they wear now. Buhari under his Baban Riga wears his protection.
Babariga is what?
Baban Riga is or his Agbada. It's
The Agbada.
yeah.
That's
So-
the Riga.
No, the Agbada is the Yoruba word. Baban Riga is Hausa. Riga is dress. Baban is big. So essentially, it's
A big dress.
Yeah.
All right. So now the river states where you come from.
Where I come from, we don't have Agbada. It's not part of our clothing.
What is part of your clothing?
Buba and Iro,
Okay, what are those?
or blouse and George. So it's a top. It's a
So it's a two-piece.
It's a two-piece,
As
but for
opposed to the
men,
one-piece for-
right? But for men, where I am from, it's a one-piece, a huge one-piece cloth that's draped over the shoulder, that is woven out of our native cloth.
And your native cloth, the name, baptism.
How do I will you understand?
Woven from what?
Huh?
Reed,
Cotton, jute.
papyrus.
It is some form of cotton, and then the
What do they mix it with?
So each clan has a color, right? So those the cloth itself is woven, and then the symbol of the clan then is woven onto the white. So now for the riverine states, the Delta, the
so
Bendel.
there are certain colors that are distinct.
So you know that's the clan. So like I am from Ikan North. Anybody who wears Ikan North, everybody who's from Ikan North and would go for a function, you would know where they were from.
So what's your color?
Blue and red.
It explains
top
many,
of the
it's-
white.
It explains many things. Now, the Kenyan equivalent. Which Kenyan community would be the equivalent of the Ikan North?
Okay. Oh, my God.
Homework for you. Go and think about it. give the matter thought. Yes. But what I wanted to ask was, I love those flowing garments.
You like it?
I love them.
City, I must get one for you.
I
Just
love
tell
them.
me the color you want.
First of all, the
Make
optics.
him an elder of your clan.
There are some. How much does it cost?
Don't worry, you and I will talk now.
Because there's something
You'll be seen
regal.
on the
There's
side.
something regal about it, and you get the
But it's
impression
king's cloth. That's what
it is. It is the a sort of garment you can't walk hurriedly in.
No,
No. And you can't even run in it.
Majestically.
No. You can't walk. You can walk majestically. It's a bit difficult to run majestically.
So you must hold something in your hand.
There's that little detail.
And then there are those that have to hold the piece of cloth itself. Or is it a sash that you...
Or like there's one that
Alright.
you put over your shoulder, but that's just how it's worn. You hold in your hand or you throw it over your shoulder.
No, those things
Very nice.
really look lovely.
Now I have to see you.
Yeah, those things.
So no wonder you're in red today.
Why?
Keeping with the tradition. Wanting everybody to know. Even you, City, you just looked.
Here.
Sorry. So interesting. Yesterday I bought a fish. Okay, I was buying fish.
Dead or alive.
It was dead, thank goodness.
All right.
However, so I looked at the parts of the fish and I said, you know what? This fish is not
It's not
fresh.
sour.
The woman said, no. It's fresh. I said, no. This fish is not fresh. Check the head. She said, look at the body. I said, no.
Head.
Check the head of the fish. If it is not pink and clear, the entire fish is spoiled. So we checked the head and truly,
Green.
What color was it?
I don't want to remember because it would make me release the
You'll
coffee I
make-
drank
you'll
this
make
morning.
you not feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So the moral of the story is that the fish indeed rots from the head.
Oh, by the way, these aren't sayings that are made up.
Mm-hmm.
They're experiential, lived experience. You see it and you figure, this one.
There's something here.
Yes. We can compact it and make it wholesome. And yes, and so that it actually applies to very many things.
Yeah. So I poked the body of the fish. It didn't come back. I said, there's something here. And truly, it was spoiled. So all these things you see running around here where people say somebody is corrupt, somebody's not behaving well, go to the source. find the problem.
If the sauce is not pink,
Many years ago, there's a friend of mine who told me something I've never forgotten, and it follows in the same vein. He told me that whenever you see a problem in an institution, he says, stop hustling with the people who are creating the problem. Go to the head. And I asked him, what do you mean? He said, look, if you work in any setup, people tend to take instructions. Now, what you're seeing is a trickle-down effect. Wherever it has come from, that is a manifestation of what started up there. So go and find out how did it start. Then you'll be able to understand how you got to where you are. That thing has stood me in good stead for a very, very long time. And that was with reference to just the workplace. And I was complaining and whining about a colleague of mine who just didn't seem to get it. The person stopped me dead on my tracks and told me,
forget about this guy.
leave
This guy.
person alone.
This is not a problem.
Go and look at him. Just his boss. And how right my friend was.
Yeah.
But then he didn't make a song and dance about. Just, matter of fact, stop. Go and look at his boss. But it makes me happy. So it means anything that we do wrong here,
It's not you.
It's not us.
man, we're saying it so that people can hear. They know who to blame.
Is the boss. Welcome to the show. Today we'll have interesting conversations. We have 3 guests in the for our show. First, we'll be talking to John Alan Namu of African Censored. They have released a new docu-series, a 4-part series on Kenya Airways. So there's this bill before Parliament, of course, and this is seeking to renationalize Kenya Airways. And on the background of that, there is now a story that the African Censored team have done, looking at where did the rain start beating KQ, the pride of Africa. So we'll be talking to John Allen about that story and the background to the story and what they found out in their research for the story. And then also, we are marking the 30th year of what? The reunification.
German reunification.
Yep. And none other than the German ambassador will be joining us in the studio to just go through this and what it means and what then it also means to the rest of the world. And then, of course, we will be crossing over to Tanzania for the next couple of weeks until Tanzanians hold their election. We'll be seeking to have a Tanzania conversation every Friday. Today, we start with the immediate former president of the Tanganyika Law Society. And her name is who, Karume?
Fatma.
Madam Fatma Karume, granddaughter and daughter of former presidents of Zanzibar.
Right.
Some a dynasty, my friend. Hey. No, anyway, so she'll be talking to us about democracy and governance in Tanzania. But let's begin where we always begin as we come to the break at 1:15. COVID-19 in numbers. What's happening around the country?
Okay, well, let's look at Kenya to start with, as we normally do. So, new cases as of yesterday, 184. And no deaths in the country. Well, actually, no deaths in the country yesterday. So 184 new cases in Kenya, taking the national tally to 38,713. And still looking around the world, the numbers continue to rise. We saw a story coming out of Nakuru this morning that double the number of patients that they've admitted at the Rift Valley Referral Hospital. And that meant now that, as opposed to where they normally had 6 patients, they now have 12 needing oxygen, and they had to increase the supply of oxygen quite some. And just an eyebrow-raising moment as far as that's concerned. 34,478,930 cases around the world, 1 million now deaths, 1,027,638 with 25,666,624 having recovered. The United States, very close to 7.5 million cases with 212,000 deaths. India now over the 6 million mark, 6,391,960. Brazil now continuing with those high numbers at 849,229. If we look at the cases that Brazil recorded yesterday, the 2nd of October, or the 1st of October rather, 35,643 new cases yesterday with 805 deaths unfortunately. So those numbers continue to rise. The South and Central American states, as we see, continue, and everybody increasing, some slightly decreasing around the world, but numbers continue to increase, whichever way we choose to look at it.
Back home, there's something happening in Nakuru, and there's a story here that the number of COVID-19 patients in need of supplementary oxygen in Nakuru has increased in the past 2 weeks. Right now, 12 people in hospital at the Rift Valley Provincial General Hospital, that's Nakuru level 5, require oxygen. 12 of the patients in that hospital. And the senior medic at the hospital, Joseph Mboro, says the consumption of the essential oxygen has risen from 32 to 72 liters of liquefied oxygen daily. It's the first time that this facility is recording a high number of patients in need of oxygen. Many of them have come from, of course, other areas, other hospitals within Nakuru County, and they're being brought here, and they need oxygen. So you see, as we talk about the curve flattening and all, we are now seeing an increase, especially in Nakuru, the last couple of days, of critical care patients. Many of them are presenting themselves with other underlying conditions like hypertension and diabetes. So we're still not out of the woods yet, especially if you're the person who gets COVID-19 and you get to a point where you need oxygen. This is a thing. Even the CAS for Health, Dr. Rashid Ahmad, said oxygen is something that we need to focus on, because we may have all these others. We may have ICUs, we may have ventilators, but if you don't have oxygen, which is a critical part, then we are still not doing as good. So it's important that we focus on getting the oxygen.
Sure.
You know, the preparation that we made a while back with regards to an anticipated surge in COVID patients, that was not an effort that went to waste. It's timely. See, the thing about this virus, even as we talk about the African continent not being as affected as the Western world, it doesn't mean we cannot be affected. What we're talking about is what we see for now. But the story of COVID is an ever-evolving story. It isn't something that has come to an end. A statement that is made today cannot be considered to be conclusive except for that particular day. Yes, and the next day, it can very easily change. And what you're also going to find is that in Europe, that uniformity isn't there. In the UK, for instance, it's mandatory to wear masks now.
Yes.
You go to Spain, you go to France, it's a different story. You can wear, the debate is still going on. All I'm saying is that different countries are responding differently when it comes to these things. And a lot of it also rests on the sort of laws they have. In some of the Scandinavian countries, you actually can't force people to wear those things. No. It's just the legal system. You cannot. You can tell them, you can suggest to them, you can give them information.
Give as much information as
but
you can.
But you can't force them. So, again, you cannot say that there's a uniform way in dealing with COVID. But what has been clear is that there are certain things that form constants, irrespective of where you are. One, COVID is real, it exists.
Right.
And if not unattended to, and if it isn't considered and given due respect, it can kill you.
It can cause a lot of damage.
Yeah, it is bad. Good morning, wherever you are. Lawrence Carrier, Benson Mumo is saying, good morning, you're tuned in. Simon Villa, Rongai is listening. Karibuni sana. The live stream is up, www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Seeing a comment here from Irene, who says the audio recorded on the YouTube is low and makes it difficult to hear it. Well, we'll address that, Irene. Asante sana for that comment. Give me right here, 17 minutes after 6. We're taking a look at the weather and then today's proverb.
...24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
When it comes to bridging the information gap to help strengthen the agricultural sector in our country, you can always rely on Farm Kenya to be the glue holding everything together. And now, courtesy of the partnership with Farmster, things couldn't be better. Introducing Farm Kenya platform, and it goes like this. Our SMS service will help farmers upload and publish their products without smartphones, while the Farm Kenya app will allow buyers locate, purchase from, and engage the farmers directly. So if you're a farmer, send a free SMS to 40446 and connect with buyers free for life. That's 40446. If you're a buyer looking for local produce, download the Farm Kenya app from Google Play Store or the Apple Store for free. Remember,
Okay, let's look at
Ukulima
Nairobi this
sio shamba
morning. It's
pekee.
cloudy at 16, mostly cloudy conditions. Highs of 27 and lows of 14 today, and it is a rainy day in the afternoon today in Nairobi. Mostly cloudy conditions in Nyeri at 14, highs of 24 and lows of 13 with showers expected later. It's clear in Nakuru at 12, highs of 24 and lows of 12 with partly cloudy conditions. Eldoret is clear at 12 this morning, highs of 22 and lows of 11. Kisumu is clear this morning at 18 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 18 with a shower or so in the afternoon. Kakamega, clear skies at 15 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 14 with rains expected later on. All right, let's take a look into Mombasa, where it's partly cloudy at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 24 with rainy conditions in the afternoon. Malindi is partly cloudy at 26, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Kampala will be mostly cloudy for most parts of the morning, highs of 24 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is clear at 23, highs of 31 and lows of 22. Johannesburg, cloudy conditions at 13, highs of 19 and lows of 12, with thunderstorms expected later. Lagos is partly cloudy at 29 degrees at the moment, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Beijing is mostly sunny, 18 degrees, highs of 27 and lows of 7 today. London partly cloudy at 12 degrees, rainy conditions expected later with highs of 14 and lows of 12. And Paris, rain throughout the morning, and there is a thunderstorm warning of yellow. It could get quite windy throughout the French capital. And finally, for now, in New York, still Thursday night, cloudy conditions at 19, highs of 23 and lows of 14.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Now 21 minutes after 6 CT. Let's begin with today's proverb.
Well, I mentioned it yesterday, and a little explanation is often required at the end of the show, so I will mention it today. Most proverbs are taken to be wisdom that has been passed down through the ages and with very profound meaning. But what one forgets is that, cumulatively speaking, there are proverbs that could actually mirror everyday life in modern day. This particular proverb is one of those. If you lose your girlfriend in a crowded bar, you just start talking to a beautiful girl and she will reappear. This is a proverb by T. Mafisi, Kenya.
There's wisdom in Tim Mafisi, right?
Yes.
If you lose your girlfriend in a crowded bar, you just need to start talking to a beautiful
Start talking to a beautiful woman, and she will reappear.
Okay. Only problem is she'll not just reappear.
They will reappear.
There will be issues.
Yes. She will return with climate change.
Oh, yes. So let's take a look at the headlines for the morning. There's, first of all, this one in the, it's the Standard, the Nation headline. The Deputy President visited Jubilee headquarters yesterday.
So we are told.
Held a meeting with a couple of MPs who are, of course, allied to the Tanga wing of Jubilee.
So we are told.
And then they re-emerged and they spoke about, we're here because we're members of Jubilee. So now that headline in the Standard, Uhuru in Paris as Ruto occupies Jubilee House. The Nation, Uhuru men in shock as Ruto storms Jubilee headquarters. So as this was happening, Deputy President comes at party headquarters as Mount Kenya leaders were holding a crisis meeting at a city hotel. The president was working in Paris. Now, for the third time in 10 days, Deputy President William Ruto came to the Jubilee Party offices yesterday, hosting MPs and sending a clear signal that he's shifting his political activities to the headquarters. Has he shifted his... Okay, so they say that it's a clear signal. On the day the president was delivering a key speech in Paris, Ruto was hosting MPs for 3 hours between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. at the Jubilee headquarters. That did not go unnoticed, of course, by the Jubilee Party Vice Chairman, David Murathe, who dismissed Ruto's activities and said he is misdirecting his energies. He says the DP should be interrogating matters of state in the absence of his boss. He is a principal assistant to the president, and now that he is away on official duty in France, the DP should be in charge, as has been the case in the past, instead of holding clandestine meetings. Was this a clandestine meeting? Wasn't.
No.
It was.
I don't understand what is meant by a clandestine meeting when the person actually went
In broad day,
yes,
in day broad light.
In day broad light. Man, you're confusing me. In broad daylight. He didn't go through the windows. He walked through the door. No.
And they emerged and they even spoke to the media here. The MPs who are allied to him spoke to the media. This included Meru Senator Mithika Linturi, who said, "We are happy that we met our deputy party leader. He has gone back to address other party matters. This is our party, and we will be frequent members here as we reinvigorate the party."
But the truth of the matter is, it is true. They are members of Jubilee.
Yep.
This Tanga Keleweke issue has been a Jubilee issue.
What do you see, though? What message are they sending? Because clearly, this is not just going at it to hold a meeting.
I think the timing also says makes it.
What message are they sending?
Okay, let's
Well,
ask the question.
when the cat's away, the mice play.
Why didn't they do that when the president was in the
Yeah,
country?
why didn't they do it last week?
But
Well, Ruto went there twice. Maybe he was going to, look at the room. That
the thing is,
appropriate for a meeting.
I don't see why even this is newsworthy. He is a member of KANU. Has he-
Jubilee.
what do I
Oh,
call it?
joy, Kanu.
Okay. All right. He's a member. He was a member of KANU. He's now a member of Jubilee. Yes, sorry. Why is it that when somebody takes a walk and goes to their party headquarters, it isn't news? Why is this news? He is a member of Jubilee.
It's news because he hasn't been doing that
He's
for
not
a
been
good
doing
while.
it for some time.
Yes.
And then
And
the
also,
party,
there's
the
Jubilee
lead is
Asili,
out of the
remember?
country.
There's Jubilee Asili. There's an office where they have been meeting. Well, they met a couple of times. And they branded it Jubilee Asili.
That is
Somewhere
perfectly
on
all right.
Riara Road.
But they didn't resign.
Of course not.
They are not.
So, which now comes to ask the question, what do you think the message here is?
I think-
Politically,
I think he went to the headquarters.
is he trying to wrestle the party?
He can't wrestle
It
the
has
party.
been said before.
It's his party.
It has been said before that he's been edged out of the core sanctum.
That-
of this
However, you
party.
realize also, remember, the COVID conference took place on Monday, which he didn't attend. On Tuesday, then he had
He hosted
this,
the youth.
He hosted the youth, and he made some statements warning people that things were not going to be the same. Moving forward, he was going to come out with guns blazing.
but please-
all right. So then
No.
this meeting takes place yesterday.
Dude, he's been hosting people at his residence for a long time. He didn't start. Which one? The wheelbarrow? Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that whole
Ring a
saga.
ring of roses wheelbarrow? That one. Look, people have been going to the deputy president's residence for the longest time. Longest time. That can't be news. He is going, all right. He has
Your attempt, City, at trying to downplay this
Like there's nothing
is
significant
very,
happening. It's very
it's
nice. It's
sticking out, not like a sore thumb, it's sticking out like a whale in the ocean.
The thing is this, there's a narrative that I have refused to abide by. That there is conflict within Jubilee, fact. Even a blind person can see that. Even a deaf person can hear the noise, all right? But that the deputy president going to the headquarters of his party is an issue. It is a non-issue. If he wasn't going, it was a non-issue. If he's now going, it's still a non-issue. Are we told when Murathe goes to the headquarters? No, we are not told. There are other. Are we told when Tuju goes to the office? We are not told.
Yeah, because they keep going there.
Because
That's
there's
what
no
I'm saying.
regularity.
There's
Yes,
no
and on
narrative
the
that
day
they're
they
being
don't go, are we
edged
told?
out.
Okay, the irregularity. On the days they don't go, are we told they don't go?
Yeah.
Imagine if you started seeing Tuju going to Karen, Ruto's residence, regularly. That would be news.
Yes, it would be.
Yes.
Because Tuju, according to the media reports we keep receiving, he and the deputy president don't seem to see eye to eye on many issues.
Yeah.
Yes. So I could interpret it and say they're trying to sort out these issues. That's why he's going to Karen this as often as he's doing. The point I'm trying to make, I think you understand very clearly. All right?
Yeah, I'm not
There
understanding.
may be political interpretations that you could attribute to what we're seeing here. There are political ramifications that you could again attribute, going back to what was said after the visit of the wheelbarrows and the mkokotenis to the deputy president's residence in Karen. You could. Personally, I don't see it.
I don't believe that this is a coincidence, and I think that it's a calculated move, and
There's a message.
there's a
being sent.
message that's being passed here. All these things that have happened in succession, I don't think can
No,
be
but you
ignored
people
as
who see the message,
as a
tell me,
random
what is
as
this
a
message?
random visit at
No, what's this
the
message?
party headquarters. You
What's
know,
this message?
Well, I mean, like I said, when the cat's away, the mice come out to play. Usually, before he has not
Stirring the
said
hornet's nest.
anything for the longest time, and then in this week, he has said a number of things and has done a number of things that has now culminated in this meeting that took place yesterday.
He's becoming more and more emboldened.
And he
right?
said it,
In
he
terms
said
of
that
what
he
he's
would.
doing.
He said
His
that
political
he would.
moves. His political moves. Imagine one day you're at a Jubilee headquarters, then you imagine, say, all right, so I understand that Jubilee is not going to field any candidate. So as Jubilee, we're not going to field any candidate. Then the next day you're hosting in your official residence a candidate who is not a Jubilee party candidate, but a candidate in that by-election. There's a message here. We may not get
What's
the
the
message.
message?
We may not
What's
get
the
the
message?
message. And that's the thing where you want to try and interpret the message. The message could be that, you know what, just like I said yesterday, I believed that we should have had a candidate. And therefore, I'm going to back this horse. The party official position is there's no candidate. It's okay. But I'm going to back a horse. I am not... I, as a member of Jubilee, as a deputy party leader of Jubilee, I'm not just going to sit back and let the people of Msambweni go ahead and pick their candidate without any input from me. No, I'm going to have an input. That's the message. I'm going against the official party position. This one of yesterday, hosting the MPs allied to him, it's not a coincidence. I mean, it's not like these guys are on Thika Road, then they were like, you know, this is our office. Can we just enter?
Let's just
No.
pop by.
There was
for-
an
it was
arranged,
planned.
a planned meeting of these minds and these personalities in these party offices. And is what they were doing, even posing for photos, because the photo that's on the front page of the Standard was taken by an official photographer, either from the DP's office or from, it's actually from the DPPS, the photo. So it tells you that they had come in and said, all right, so watch a bigger picture, then maybe step out and allow us to meet. There's a message here. And it's very clear that there is a message being passed in the fullness of time.
But the message
the
will become
message-
clear.
Yeah.
It will become.
So essentially what you're saying is right now an unclear message is being passed.
Right now,
There are rumblings of
maybe the
something going on.
recipients of this, the intended recipients of the message have gotten it. The rest of us, the spectators, are just there wondering, okay, any penalty, I'm on your offside.
18,
Any 18.
not 12.
Yes. So let's take a break, take a look at the traffic, and then come back and look at other headlines. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Ghana Samuel, good morning. Kisii is tuned in. He says Kisii is a land of honey and milk. I don't understand why the Kisiis don't call it Kisii. They call it Kisii. If you ask actually Ghana Samuel, tell you, I'm in Kisii,
Not Kisi.
not Kisii. The rest of us call it Kisii.
I think we should call it Kisi. Yes.
How they call
The
it.
owners of that particular land know what it's called.
It's
The rest of
Kisi.
us take our cue from them.
All right.
Yeah.
So if it's Kisi, then it is
Call it
Kisi.
Kisi.
Yes.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Malindi.
Okay, let's take a look at what's going on. It is Friday, and we know it's just around the middle of the month. We're going to see quite a lot of people getting out of the city this morning, and we do see heightened levels of traffic out of Thika Road this morning. And apart from that, nothing else much going on. We know definitely that there's going to be a pickup of traffic between Mlolongo and heading out towards the Cabanas. Nothing major at the moment, though. So we'll keep checking on that. Remember, 40127. That's how you can text us and let us know if you're stuck somewhere or if you have a route that nobody else seems to have found out about. This would be the nice time to, share. And let it be that people don't get stuck this Friday morning. So we'll take a look throughout the city and outside of Nairobi as well to Nakuru, Kisumu and Mombasa and see what it's looking like there. But we're going to expect it to be quite busy. It is Friday after all, and it is the beginning of the month.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, now we're talking about Kisi. How would a Kisi pronounce Donholm?
Pronounce what now?
Donholm.
Donholm.
The estate. Let's move on. Vincent says, good morning, mark me present in Donholm. Tell Mr. C.T. Mugat that to speak the Igbo language, you just frown a bit. Frown. Raise the voice a bit and introduce na and o in every word that you add.
Okay.
Not okay, o.
I swear, Eric.
Is it possible for this fine gentleman to actually record
Himself.
Yes,
I saw the way your face changed when he said raise your voice a bit.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, for me to understand this is not something I need to see, something I need to hear.
It's Eric.
You need to get it all.
Eric said not okay.
Demonstration.
Nah, you get it.
Nah.
Oh.
It's nah.
Nah.
Demonstration
So what is nah?
is
Okay, like it
Like
depends,
now we are
Sha.
speaking nah.
No, we're speaking nah. As in nah is the short form of now.
Okay.
The nah is like my brother, my guy. Nah, how now?
Say I'm fine. Oh.
look, how now? Let's go to the headlines.
So, when other people were doing all these things, Huru was in Paris at the Champs-Élysées and he was talking with Monsieur Macron.
Ndu,
Oui.
please.
Pole.
I know you have pronounced it the way it should be pronounced, but I believe you're referring to the Champs-Élysées.
Champs-Élysées.
All right, call it what you call it again.
Champs-Élysées.
Okay.
You like. So, some deals that have been inked and some bilateral agreements between Kenya and France. They inked an agreement on a public-private partnership for construction and the Nairobi-Nakuru Mau Summit Highway, which has been signed between the Kenya National Highway Authority and Vinci Concessions. The two countries also agreed to develop the Nairobi Central Business District to Kenyatta International Airport commuter railway line and the 400 kV Menengai-Rongai electricity transmission line. All right. They witnessed this signing on Wednesday evening. And this 6-lane dual carriageway will be one of the largest PPP projects in East Africa. The two other deals are for the development of a commuter railway line, like we said, and also the transmission line between Menengai and Rongai. Kenya's ambassador to France, Judy Wahungu, said earlier that this head of state visit was a continuation of the historical bilateral ties that have existed between Kenya and France for over a century. French companies, the largest component of the relationship is actually education. We have had Kenyan students in France for many years. We've also had French researchers in Kenya for very many years, adding that there are over 100 French companies operating in Kenya. So this was a good deal in terms of being signed here, and this will the meeting will bring. There's a meeting that will take place following this. The Movement d'Entreprise de France, and the meeting will bring together investors from Kenya and France to discuss investment opportunities in Kenya, as well as explore avenues for increasing Kenyan exports into the lucrative French market.
I think the detail that I'd like to know is the timelines for these projects. So, for example, the Menengai power timelines, the timeline for this commuter rail from JKIA to the CBD, and is it only just from JKIA to CBD? And then what happens with the rest? The timeline for the highway to Nakuru. Important to know.
The highway is supposed to start in 2021. That one they've indicated.
Complete when?
Let them start first now.
You wanted to know when it starts. Now,
No,
why
not
are you
the
asking me
timelines.
when it's going to get finished?
Timeline
Eric
is
wants to know
begin,
in
end.
between and end. Now,
All right, I will withdraw the statement of beginning so that you can ask somebody else that question. I'm giving you responses, then you're making my life difficult.
on this Friday
and
morning.
it's so early in the morning.
Or more.
or more.
Strong thing.
Surely.
This one.
The one thing that when I thought about these projects and I find interesting is especially in road construction. Yes, so we're getting into another whole new area of toll stations on all the highways. So imagine you're coming from Mombasa and you're going to Eldoret. You pay a toll from Mombasa, you pay a toll between JKIA and Westlands, you pay another toll between that section to Mau Summit. Maybe there'll be another section again that takes you into Eldoret, another toll. That's not the issue, though, that I'm talking about. Remember, the section from Mombasa to the Machakos Junction, that's going to be done by an American company.
Right.
Then we have a Chinese company doing from Machakos Junction to Kitengela Junction. Then you have this other Chinese company that's doing the elevated highway from JKIA to Westlands. Now we're going to have a French company. It's a good mix.
It's called international development. Yeah.
Question, Kenyan company. What do? They do the marams.
There has been a complaint by the association of people or individuals or groups that whose business is road construction, that they would also like to have a piece of this business. But let's go back into history, not into the too distant past, when we had President Kibaki as president. During the time when President Kibaki took over, these roads were built by locals, by and large. But there came a time when we then learned that there was a group of people referred to as briefcase contractors. And they were predominantly Kenyans, people who were given work, even prepaid, never completed the work.
Oh, they take so long. There are a number of projects that are currently ongoing, and if you look at the contractors are Kenyan, right? There's Westlands and Parklands Ring Road. It has taken more than 10 years to complete. There's the section here of Enterprise Road and some roads in the industrial area.
They are always incomplete. And you wonder, surely.
What's the problem? I know, like Ngong Road, for example, has taken 15 years. It started 15 years ago, and right now it's in the process of completion.
Ngong Road, again...
And I know it's a partnership. It's a partnership between the Chinese and the Japanese.
No.
And
Excuse
Kenya.
me? Japanese, not Chinese.
Both of them are working on it, CT.
There's a section of
There's
Chinese.
a section of Chinese,
And
and then the section of Japanese.
Excusez-moi, s'il vous plaît.
Wait,
Okay.
monsieur. So you're crossing to the realm of language. Oh, yeah, no.
Oui.
Yes.
Oui, monsieur.
What you've said is actually true. Now, that road, for the longest time, was actually maintained by Kenyan contractors. But what we used to see was something called recarpeting. That thing worked very well before it rained.
And then it rained.
When it rained,
Sludge.
next day, pothole. Not a week, next day. And it was consistent.
Right.
The jams on that road were unspeakable for the longest time. Now there's infinitely more traffic. Traffic flows on that road.
It's true. It does.
Probably because the Kenyan contractor was only given a job to maintain and not to expand. These new contractors have come in with a specific objective. Expand the road, dual it all the way from the City Mochi roundabout up to Karen.
You do have a point, Eric, but the plans for that road, the plans to make that road a dual carriage bay existed from the time of President Moi.
A long, long time.
A long
Yes,
time
it didn't
ago.
start with President Kibaki. It started
Kibaki.
with President Moi. It was seen. I mean, plans, when you talk about planning, it isn't for tomorrow and the day after. It's for years to come. And that's why you have these road reserves and you have these spaces on the side of the road so that when the expansion, that need comes along, you are able to do what you plan to do.
But let me ask you, can Kenyan companies not handle the construction
They
of roads
can.
in the country?
They can.
So what is the problem? Because just like Eric said, you have this road, one international, another road, because it may come with international funding. However, the construction also comes with an international construction company. So it's not possible. Why? What happens?
One of the problems that has been stated as being the problem is the problem that we find in KEMSA, the problem that we found in the MES project, because these are Kenyans procuring for Kenyans for their beloved country, okay? Same problem. The money may be available, but that money finds other uses other than for what it was intended. That was the problem.
I think there's also another problem. If you look at those projects that we're talking about, there's a funding component that's inked in the deal.
Yes.
So the money is not coming from the National Treasury.
No, it isn't.
There's already a clear where is the money going to come from. This is the financial institution that is financing this project, and this is where the money will go. In many of the local projects that we see, it's part of the budget for the Ministry of Transport. So the same games that we see with Treasury delaying in releasing funds, we see that with the local contractor. So local contractor has been deployed. Let's say the Kasarani Mwiki Road. Local contractor
That one
deployed.
has taken forever,
Local
hasn't it?
contractor does not receive the money to continue the project. So local contractor has no option but to...
Or local contractor just gets the 10 or 20% that they're supposed to get for mobilization, and then thereafter
that's it.
there's no more money
There's
coming.
no more money coming
and so
in.
they stop.
Yeah. So sometimes there's that delicate balance. But at the same time, we should be looking at, in the fullness of time, when you finish that project, you local contractor, what quality of work did you do?
Was that not always the question? Always that why is it that these roads that our local contractors build, the ones they look after, their lifespan is a bit brief?
Yeah, that's the question.
But also, Eric, you know that that start and stop that we also used to see, again, it has been said, is attributed to the same problem we're talking about. Those who are supposed to release that money are Kenyans. They are not going to release that money unless you speak to them. This is a problem. Remember, it is President Kibaki who said, okay, enough is enough. 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 There are other people who can build these roads. Let's get these people to do these things.
Just do the roads.
Yes.
What do we want? Road.
Okay. Can you build a road? There are those who also argue that the dual carriageways are supposed to take place from Mombasa to Nairobi. Part of the reason why it delayed was, again, those shenanigans. These people are not willing to play ball. They said, excuse me, as we're coming to build roads, these are the stories you're telling us. Forget it.
Forget it.
And they said, you know, that thing has been on for the longest time.
Even this one from JKIA,
Yes.
the elevated highway. This
Yes.
has been a project that's begun in the Kibaki days, even before.
Even before Kibaki. They were
There's
planned
an
for
issue.
before.
There's World
Yes.
Bank comes in. World Bank says, no, the contractor that you're going for is blacklisted in our books. Gets to a point where the World Bank is saying the viability of this project, by the way, as it was initially planned,
Envisioned, yes. No.
rethink it. Back and forth.
But remember, there's also the debate of the issue of people being charged to use a road. I think when you have that discussion, you must also have the discussion of the benefits that come with it. Because it means I don't have to be on a crowded highway if my intention is to go to Eldoret.
Right.
If my intention is to go to Mombasa, I don't have to be greeting lorries from here until I get to Mombasa. If I am on Mombasa Road and I actually just want to join that highway that either goes to Eldoret or Kisumu, I don't have to pass through Westlands. It's a good thought. But significantly, Eric, what people don't know, we used to pay tolls for our roads before.
They used to be there.
Oh, yeah, they were there. They were there. If you're on Thika Road, you will see it.
Yeah.
If you are on your way to
Mombasa
Naivasha,
Road,
you will see it.
you'll
Mombasa
also see
Road,
it.
you'll see it. If you're on Nyali Bridge in Mombasa, you will see it. They're all over the place. This isn't something new. The thought isn't new.
Let's see how they implement it. At 12 minutes to 7, taking another quick break, and then we'll be back to look at more headlines. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
On page 13 of the Standard newspaper today is a story about a report that was tabled in Parliament by the Health Committee of the National Assembly, which says that the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Susan Mochache, should be investigated over her role in the botched procurement of COVID-19 supplies. The committee also wants suspended CEO Jonah Manjari, Head of Procurement Charles Juma Ezekiel, Head of Commercial Services Eliud Mureithi, and Head of Finance and Legal Departments probed. The officers were indicted for irregular expenditure in the procurement of the medical supplies and undertaking procurement without an approved plan. So here is one report that comes with a conclusion that says, investigate so and so. Not all those involved in. It actually names names.
Clear way forward in one aspect.
It names names.
Yeah.
And the committee, for example, said there is lack of clarity on how KEMSA identified their suppliers, as a majority of companies awarded the COVID-19 related tenders were not pre-qualified. Now, what I'd like to see, I haven't seen this report and I'll be looking for it, is I'd like to see whether they also name some of these companies. Because it's well and good to talk about the public officers involved, but also, like I keep saying, the private sector that is involved in this should also be cited.
Yes.
Some of the organizations maybe should also be investigated and seen, all right, so did you deliver? Did you not deliver? Did you get paid? Did you deliver on what you're supposed to have delivered? Then what happens to you in terms of even getting blacklisted? We should get to a point where we blacklist private entities that do business with government fraudulently.
One of the problems that has occurred in Kenya numerous times is that we do know what it is you need to do in order to get blacklisted. And these companies actually do get blacklisted. And then lo and behold, if I may use a Kenyan phrase, shock on you, you actually find that these especially the blacklisted companies are the ones who keep getting work.
Yep.
But they've been blacklisted.
Or another way where they cleverly, it's not the individual directors or shareholders who've been blacklisted, it's the companies that have been blacklisted. So shareholder goes and opens another company. And the new company has absolutely no blot. So it gets
There's
to
no
work
blot,
with the
yes,
government.
but of course the directors make it known that it is them who are behind this.
Who are behind it?
So one shouldn't fear that business will come to an end.
Imagine. It's really, really...
You know, this KEMSA story and the MES story, even as one reads it, at a certain level, I get a bit fatigued. And I get fatigued because it's like we're chasing a tail we don't actually have. Going around in circles. The circle exists because we're creating it. So, until and unless those who want to claim that they are the ones who are responsible for trying to determine the rights and wrongs in this particular cases, if they do not feel or they don't see the need to actually mention names, it is even futile discussing this thing.
Exactly.
It's completely futile.
Sure.
Yes.
Here's something that I'm wondering. So when you have two houses of parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate, and these houses of parliament are both investigating the same issue, they come up with two separate reports. If the two separate reports are conflicting, which one do you go with?
Well,
So you see now the Health Committee of the National Assembly has come up with its report. It's investigated KEMSA and COVID-19 and has said this is what our recommendation is. Let's assume the National Assembly adopts this committee. Senate, there's a special committee that is investigating KEMSA. It comes up with its own report. That report is adopted by the Senate. So which of those two reports is the executive going to rely on?
Very interesting.
Why not have just a joint?
Just consolidate this thing.
Joint
and have a
investigation.
Joint investigation.
I remember
as
a time
committee.
when the Senate was considered Nyumba Hawaze. It's a place where you sort of like went to fossilize and hibernate. And then they realized that the Constitution gave them some teeth. So now they've been sharpening their teeth and trying to become relevant, or should I say become more relevant. Now, the quest for relevance, especially when there's an election looming in the not too distant horizon, I think that has become activities. We hear them more often. We see the activities more often. activities that we assumed. For the longest time, I assumed that it's only the National Assembly that had these functions. And yet, the reality is that so does the Senate. Okay? And remember, there was a time they were fighting turf wars. Who should do what and who should look into this and who should do the other. I don't think this issue of turf wars is going to come to an end. Not really.
It's going to be there for some time.
Com-
for sure.
Look, politics is a competitive sport. Okay? There are certain members of parliament who now want, of the National Assembly, who want to become senators. I don't know of any senator who wants to become an MP.
They want to go on to become governors.
They want to become governors. That's how they think.
Yeah.
But you know, this is where sometimes we miss the plot. Because if you look at some of the more developed countries, someone can be a prime minister and become a mwananchi mtukufu, MP, become a minister, and probably even go back and become a prime minister again. Okay? There are countries in Latin America where you find someone was president. Those are a bit interesting because you find the husband was also president.
Yeah.
And they, according to their laws, they missed one term, and now they're vice presidents.
And it's
Yep.
okay.
That's fine.
It's also fine. But ours, somehow people seem to think, in our minds, we've created this thing that as a member of parliament, it's a lower representation of the people. The Senate is a higher one.
You cannot degrade yourself.
Yes.
It's not even about the people. It's
It's
an
nothing
ego
to do
thing.
with the people.
Yes. One is in charge of a county, the other one is in charge of a constituency.
Can you imagine suggesting to a current member of parliament that, you know what, maybe you'd
Go and
serve
be
the
an
people
MCA.
better
As
if
an
you
MCA.
served in the county assembly?
Yeah.
You'd be able to effect development in your county and people would see.
You'll
Demote
have
me.
opened a war front.
I have done the same. I've actually told very many members of parliament who are friends of mine, I wish you were in that county assembly.
You'd
The
be
number of
a
things that
lot
you-
more useful.
More
Yeah.
effective.
Can you imagine what that county assembly would be benefiting from? The kind of input that you'd be given.
And clearly at that point in time, you're poking at the bear.
The bear has been
friend.
poked properly.
Meanwhile, the member of parliament for he's from where?
Sorry,
John Waluke is a member of parliament for
seriously.
Seriously.
Sirisia. He was in parliament yesterday.
Yes, he was, and people welcomed him with open arms, and he thanked them for the support that they had accorded him while he was behind bars for 4 months.
And
And
he
came
said
back
he
to say-
realized he realized that there are very many people in this country who are jailed, yet they're very innocent.
Those people that he met there,
Like himself.
From his own experience.
the ones that he met when he was inside,
From his own,
according
just looking at his own
That's the,
experience.
that's the Mheshimiwa
How he
imagine
was
that-
dragged through the mud and then sentenced for so many 70 years in jail, yet he's innocent.
That's what
He realized, my God, this
how
system.
the system is rotten.
Does the Mheshimiwa think that there's anybody who is in prison who actually is guilty?
Everybody who is in prison is innocent, of course. Speaking of people who are in prison, very quickly, the trial of accused Felicia and Kabuka has been set for Arusha as the search for the last top genocide fugitive Mpiranya continues. So, France's top appeals court ruled Wednesday that Kabuka, who had evaded capture in several countries, should be transferred to a UN tribunal in Tanzania to stand trial. This other gentleman on the run for 20 years, Mpiranya, who is also charged with war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity, is the most sought of the 6 remaining fugitives indicted by an international tribunal in the 1994 slaughter, which left some 800,000 dead. Now, Mpiranya, who's believed to be around 60, remains at large at the time of the genocide. He commanded the Presidential Guard, a feared outfit accused of targeted assassinations during the 100-day massacre of Tutsis and moderate Hutus. So, there was the whole debate about where this trial was going to be had. It has now been decided that it will take place in Tanzania.
In Arusha.
Yes. And as they continue to look for this other fellow. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this now.
This is nice. This is nice. At least it's coming to the same place where all the other prosecutions were taking place, the ICT.
Right.
But now the ICTR is normal. But the fact that it's actually happening in Arusha is significant. It is significant.
What is now the office that runs with essentially the closure of the ICTR will probably set up a tribunal to have that done. Probably within the same facility.
Very good. Very, very good. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we will be speaking to journalist John Alan Namu. In fact, we'll start off by asking him for comment on this particular issue. He's followed up the issue of Felicia and Kabuka for very many years. But also, they have come up with a new report, a 4-part series called Kenya Airways, Fall of the Pride. As Kenya Airways is looking to be renationalized, we're looking back at what exactly went wrong and what happened. So we want to seek to understand what they came up with in their story as Africans Uncensored, and to understand what they next steps would be for Kenya Airways. Good morning. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Mwisinga Itumbu tukondani hadi tamati. This is Ziggy Mkulima. Karibu sana Ziggy Mkulima. And also, you can watch us on KTN Home. We'll be live in the next hour. Good morning, 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
All right, so there's an accident that's happened at on Thika Road, rather, and that's right around Safari Park Hotel. It's holding up some smooth traffic there, but then you're clear until Pangani. When you get to Pangani, though, as you're trying to get into the CBD, it's going to take some time. So a bus has rammed into a Matatu inbound, and this caused a bit of a snarl up, but traffic police are on the scene to try and get that sorted out. Okay, so that's the problem that we see on Thika Road today. Outbound, there's a heightened level of traffic, but everybody's leaving the city, and we know why. We're going to take a look at the highway then after Limuru towards Naivasha, and then Nakuru after that. We'll look at that in a short while. Mombasa Road, we see the normal traffic that we experience on weekdays. It is Friday. Everybody's out and about trying to do something or the other, and so that affects traffic as well. Okay, so prepare for that on Mombasa Road and Thika Road as well. The eastern and southern bypasses, however, are open up for use. It's not too crazy. There is a jam on Kiambu Road as usual. So pepper it all with a bit of patience, won't you? 40127. That's how you can text us or tweet us. Spice FM KE.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This
It's now
is the
2.5 minutes
Situation
after
Room.
7.
The only
Very
way
good morning to you and happy Friday. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online, www.spicefm.co.ke. Also live streaming on Spice FM KE, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. If you are tuning in on Spice FM, it's 94.4 in Nairobi. We are in Mombasa, 87.9. Kisumu is 102.5. 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. CT, as we begin the hour, remind us today's proverb.
Yes, Kenyan proverb, modern day times, by Team Mafisi. If you lose your girlfriend in a crowded bar, just start talking to a beautiful woman and she will reappear.
If you lose a girlfriend in a crowded bar, just start talking to a beautiful woman and she will reappear.
Yes.
Proverb makes sense. You said it's by?
Well, Team Mafisi, it's Kenyan.
That's
all
a
right?
tribe.
Please note that they did not, yes, Eric, I know where you're going with this. Please note they didn't mention if you miss your wife in a crowded bar. They said girlfriend. Specific.
One thing for sure, if you go with your wife in a crowded bar, you're never going to miss her. You will not lose her.
Wow. Okay.
I am not going to
You
comment.
two are joined in the hip.
You brought this up.
You two are joined in the hip already.
Okay.
Why
Just
do
the
you
end
want
of
to
that.
go
Let's
with your
move on.
wife to a
Okay.
crowded
Why
bar?
would you want to go with your wife to a crowded bar? Okay.
So you wait for Sunday, you go to church.
Wow. It's another crowd bar. Okay.
All right. So just like we promised, we wanted to talk about Kenya Airways again this morning. We've had the Kenya Airways conversation a number of times. We have spoken with the CEO of Kenya Airways, Alan Kilavuka, twice. We have spoken with the Kenya Airline Pilots Association. We have spoken with other people who have been following the story of Kenya Airways. Now, what we know is that before Parliament is a conversation on the renationalization of Kenya Airways, and this is putting it under one umbrella body that will bring in together the Kenya Airways, the Kenya Airports Authority, and the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, all to be managed by one entity. And now this will be a national entity, so it will become taxpayers' organization, no longer private. And currently, Kenya Airways is going through some changes. You know, they're trying to say, all right, after COVID-19, what we've seen in COVID-19, now we need to pivot. That word again, pivot. So how they're pivoting is a number of things that Alan Kilavuka, this MD, has told us. Among them will be to reduce the areas that they're operating in, look at their flight, be lean and mean, and then start growing again. But you keep asking this question whenever we speak Kenya Airways story, City. Where did the rain start beating Kenya Airways? I mean, what went wrong? At some point, Kenya Airways was a very profitable organization. It was indeed the pride of Africa. And then things just started going south.
It's like we went into some talent show and talent competition where we're trying to determine who can bring down a successful company. We're making money, and then all of a sudden, you keep hearing stories of planes being leased. You hear of contracts for fuel. You hear all sorts of things, and none of them seem to favor the furtherance of Kenya Airways. And then I actually don't marvel that Kenya Airways is where it's at, on its knees. Kenya Airways was brought to its knees. It didn't go or get there. It wasn't a self-propelling endeavor. There are individuals who brought Kenya Airways to its knees. And what I find even more puzzling, it became a private entity.
It's human error, not technical fault.
It's human deliberate activity. It wasn't error, it's deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain you move from an entity that was actually government-owned, you make it private, you even allow the common mwananchi to be a part owner of it, and then it starts making money. There are people who come in. It becomes a really vibrant airline. When airlines, even in the West, are failing, big airlines are collapsing. Kenya was making money. And then this group goes away. We bring in a Kenyan management. You ask them the rain. Then the rain starts beating us from that point onwards. You don't see it because Kenya was successful. But things start happening, and we have this problem and that problem. Then there's this concession we have at Heathrow. We are told we've sold it. We're all manner of things. We're leasing planes, and you're wondering, why are we leasing planes from a company that has leased them? And you wonder, but don't we know where these planes are manufactured? Questions which never get answered. But the thing that is consistent, Kenya loses money, and it's not, in fact, it's not even on its knees, it's on its belly.
Good thing is that the investigative journalism team of Africa Uncensored, through their CEO and co-founder John Allan Namu and the other team, have taken a couple of months going back into where that rain started beating us, where the turbulence became too much. And they've released a 4-part series, Africa Uncensored, on their YouTube channel, Africa Uncensored. It's called Kenya Airways Fall of the Pride. And we want to understand exactly what they found when they were investigating this. They spoke to several people who were involved. They've spoken to the current CEO. They've spoken to the current chairman of Kenya Airways. They've spoken to former employees of Kenya Airways, current employees of Kenya Airways, and others, including a senator who was in the team that investigated this matter in the last session, in the last parliament. So John Allan Namu is now joining us on the line. Good morning, John Allan.
Morning, Eric. Morning, Du. Morning, Titi.
Morning, John.
Good morning, John.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
We are doing very well, John.
Yeah. Fantastic.
CT is woke this
CT,
morning, so it's great.
yeah. I really enjoyed how woke CT was this morning. I was listening to you express from Team 150.
I was introduced to this word woke this week. It was actually explained to me in details, and I was told it doesn't mean what I knew woke to be. So
it doesn't mean that you're woke now.
it isn't a past tense, yes. And you can't say I am awoke. No, it's just I am woke.
It's nothing to do with the English language. Awake, awoke, awoken,
No.
woke.
Woke.
All right, John, welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to host you. I love your trophy cabinet.
Sorry?
We love your trophy
Oh,
cabinet.
the trophy cabinet behind me.
Yes.
It's not really a trophy cabinet, but yeah, it's just knickknacks that we found over the years.
Now, that yellow futuristic vehicle is something else.
It's an ode to my childhood.
There you
Right.
go.
So, John, tell us about this new series that you released just the day before yesterday. Kenya Airways,
Well, first-
The Fall
yeah.
of the Pride.
First of all, I mean, I'm very relieved to be sitting in this position as editor / co-producer of the piece, because the majority of the work, the heavy lifting, was done by people in my team, by Maurice Onyango, as well as help from a team of really good journalists from under the banner of Finance Uncovered. They operate from the UK, but also investigate a lot of stuff here in Kenya and in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But the point of Fall of the Pride was really to trace exactly the question that you asked: where did the rain start beating Kenya Airways? As a Kenyan, speaking as a Kenyan, it always fills me with pride to be able to fly from one destination to another. We had a number of stories, while I was at ATN, where we got out of scrapes and got onto a Kenya Airways plane and were able to relax. And it was really, it's really an airline that has a lot of special, there's a lot that Kenyans really invested in it emotionally, right? So for it to have come to a point where it's half-year losses this year, 14 billion shillings, is really, is really something to think about. So what we did was we started going through the company's records way back from the 90s. And what we, discovered over time is now some of those small stories that TT was talking about, about fuel hedging, about procurement problems, and things started to mount up in terms of losses. And then, there was this profligate spending at some point that was explained by one of the former employees that we spoke to, Sadano Query. And all of these added up to, quite a number of losses. But the big move, the place where, people can say the rain started beating us, was Project Mawingu. Now, Project Mawingu was a very ambitious and well-intentioned project to expand Kenya Airways aircraft fleet by over 100%, right? And expand its routes into different parts of Africa, different parts of the world, become a hub, real hub for Africa. So the intention of it was very good, because what it would have done is it would have turned Kenya into a Dubai of sorts,
Right.
where people land here to go to different parts of Africa, where people connect through here. It still happens to a large extent, but not in the way that it was envisioned by Project Mawingu. But what then Project Mawingu did is it opened the floodgates, in a sense, for the kind of procurement problems that we've seen over the years. Buying of narrow-body aircraft as opposed to wide-body aircraft, and then putting them onto routes that required wide-body aircraft. The procurement of the aircraft themselves were very shrouded in quite a bit of mystery. Special purpose vehicles being put together to buy them, and those special purpose vehicles being registered in secrecy jurisdictions. So you wonder what the problem is, and that started to roll on and on and on and on. Kenya Airways also has, quite a number of very experienced staff who were part of, Kenya Airways' journey from 1996 onwards, and who started being whittled out slowly by slowly. And then staff became a key problem, and it became almost cyclical, where every 3 to 4 years there'd be sacking of staff, but Kenya Airways bill wouldn't go down. So the story of Kenya Airways isn't the story of one man or one story. It's really a combination of things and a combination of men and women who over time were able to bring Kenya Airways to the point where it is. And honestly speaking, as a Kenyan, I sympathize with Alan Kilavuka's situation now, because what he is carrying is a legacy of all of these mistakes, all of this mismanagement, and all of the misfortune that Kenya Airways befell over the years that it's had to carry.
Yeah. Just going back to that, the project Mawingu, like you said, it was very well intentioned, just like many other projects in the country. When it is being conceived at that stage, it's a brilliant idea. Make Nairobi the hub, have the hub and spoke, look at increasing and expanding your destinations. If you want to call yourself the pride of Africa, then increase the many places that you go to from Africa, bring them to Nairobi, take them to the rest of the world. Brilliant. But then you start saying, at the implementation, it appears that's where the merchants come in, and they look at that idea and they're like, so where shall we make our money? So, for instance, let's just talk about what you even covered in your story, the purchase of narrow-bodied aircraft to go to African destinations and the impact of that. You spoke to Mr. Okwiri, who was the head of cargo. So what exactly was wrong with purchasing this narrow-bodied aircraft versus wide-body aircraft?
So what Kenya Airways had intended to do was become the launch customer for the Dreamliner 787, which is a wide-body aircraft and can fly to various destinations, and those destinations would mainly be in Africa and different places, right? But a number of things happened there. Boeing delayed the release of the Dreamliner, if you recall, for a number of years, right? So then Kenya Airways was put in a situation where it had to, resort to something else to be able to carry on with its plan. But the decision there was interesting. So they began to lease 737 aircraft, and then went into buying the Embraers, about 10 or 11 of them, right? Now, the problem with putting an Embraer, at least from what we've been able to understand through the story, the problem with putting a narrow-body aircraft on a route that has a lot of cargo is that when you're flying there, yes, you'll sit down, right? And you'll get to your destination, but the cargo often got left behind. And West Africa is a very, very lucrative route for Kenya Airways, right? The ticket prices are high because almost nobody flies there, right? So Kenya Airways really had that route in the palm of its hand. And changing that strategy began to now, challenge or rather began to disappoint a lot of customers. We started to lose money on cargo as well, which is where airlines make their profit, right? And the airline business, in as much as there's a lot of money, that's involved, is a very, very narrow margin business. And as Mr. Okwiri explained it to us and what we saw, cargo really is where people make the money. So if you compromise that, then you start to compromise your profit directly, right? And the purchase of the aircraft themselves, it was done through two banks, or rather the financing was done through two banks. Then the SPVs that I keep on mentioning, Samburu and Amboseli, it was claimed were supposedly, above board companies. But you go and try and follow who are the beneficial owners of Amboseli and Samburu, and you kind of get into a rabbit hole. And that sort of tells you that the beneficial owners of those SPVs are trying to hide who they are, right? By registering them in secrecy jurisdictions, places where, tax rates aren't as high and company ownership isn't as open as the country. It tells you something about the intention. But we left that out of the story because we couldn't get to the very end of that trade. If we did, perhaps we'd have been having a different discussion.
But explain what is the purpose of bringing in this SPV? So you want to buy an Embraer, you know the manufacturer of the Embraer, you are the airline that's going to benefit. What's the purpose of bringing in an intermediary?
So an intermediary or a special purpose vehicle, especially when you're seeking financing, is used in many, many transactions so that the bank feels safe, the bank that's financing you feels safe that you're going to be able to pay. They have some sort of oversight over the SPV, and you're able then to commit through buying that. Sometimes SPVs are used as these kinds of things. But why I was talking about the beneficial ownership of these SPVs is because then it tells you that there might be another third party that we're not even seeing who is at the table, but we don't understand the intention of. And even the push to buy the Embraers themselves, the question is why, right? And that justification over the years, has been made variously about fuel economy of those planes, but, fuel hedging is one of our biggest issues, so that didn't help very much, right? So the question of the SPVs, even to the Senate committee, was something that really, confused them. It was a bit bewildering. Why would you do it in this way? Why would you go and, establish these kinds of relationships with a company that is not, even though it was a private company at the time, but publicly owned as well, the Kenyans have a huge stake in Kenya Airways. So why make all of these decisions? And hopefully over time, this kind of, the answers that we've been seeking will come out. There are people out there, by the way, Eric, who know exactly what the answers to those questions are,
But
who
John,
we're hoping will come out.
John, doesn't this kind of point to some kind of malpractice? If we're just going to be honest and open about it and say that, beyond the mismanagement and making of decisions that just doesn't seem to make any kind of sense, then couldn't this point to malpractice, or that individuals somewhere, as we see in very many cases, were using this decision to their own benefit at some point? Because just coming off the premise of some of the things that you have said, if we know that an airline makes most of its profits through cargo, and then you go in and then buy smaller vehicles in this sense that then are not able to meet the cargo needs or the cargo demand, it's clear and obvious that then you lose out on something that you would essentially make money from. And so the decision was still taken.
Yeah.
And then the question still remains, why? Wouldn't it be that there was some kind of malpractice here?
Well, the reason why we didn't go directly at that term malpractice is because malpractice denotes very specific things, right? And you'd have to be able to establish intent, you'd have to be able to, establish motives, etc. Why we settled on the term mismanagement is because of the consequences of those actions, right? Because we couldn't find the person at the other end of the smoking gun, right? It would be very, very difficult to say so. But yes, anecdotally, that's what it would point to, that there'd be some sort of intent, some motive that would lead to the making of those kinds of decisions. We can't say that in the story until we have the proof of that. But, in conversation, perhaps that's where, it would lead.
It's quite interesting and disheartening when you look at this, and even you get to a point so many years down the road, even after an investigation by a Senate committee, by investigation by so many others, you're still unable to unearth some of these truths. What does that point to? What does that say to you?
Let me speak generally about what that means in a country like this. If you, for all of your efforts, have investigated and have been led to the very door where the answers would lie on the other side of that door, it often means that the person holding that other side of that door is far more powerful than even the investigative, capacity that you have, right? Let me leave it at that, because then now you'd be able to deduce what I'm saying.
Okay. If you're even going higher up, we started the show this morning talking about how things rot, a fish rots from the head, and say that then higher up is where the problems actually lie. So then to see something that could be, if we look across the continent from Nigeria to Cameroon to South Africa, we've seen countries basically that their national airlines have fallen into absolute pieces as far back as the 80s. And Kenya seems to have taken that same direction for the same problems that these other airlines have fallen apart. Is it an African problem?
I know it's not. Because airlines across the world have also collapsed because of mismanagement. Like I said, the airline business really requires disciplined, focused management because you're dealing with razor-thin margins, and the airline business is very, very sensitive to various shocks. I'll give you an example that Kenya Airways often, use as a problem that caused some of the things that we're seeing now, or a couple of problems. So the terrorism attack in 2013, the Ebola pandemic in 2014, affecting West Africa, to which we flew our most lucrative routes, right? So if that was cut off, then that means there's a lot of revenue that's not coming in, right? Right now with COVID-19, there's also problems in terms of international travel. So all of those shocks combined to really harm an airline. I really don't like saying that it's an African problem because what that denotes is something very self-deprecating to us, that it is only us who have those kinds of problems, and it's because of our skin and our genes. But there definitely is a trend in terms of the decisions that African leaders have taken to be able to collapse companies such as these. So in that way, you can say that it might be a global problem, but it is localized in Africa. And the problem isn't how we manage airlines, it's how we lead, right? And that's the problem. The problem is that our leadership has consistently failed or not lived up to the aspirations of the citizenry, and have done things to make it seem as if we all have a problem. But the truth of the matter is the problem is very, very acute, and we know where it lies.
We're going to take a break now at 25 minutes after 7. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Speaking to us this morning is John Allan Namu, the CEO and co-founder of Africa Uncensored. Africa Uncensored is an investigative journalism hub that has come up with a story that's online. It's called Kenya Airways Fall of the Pride. It's a 4-part series. John Allan Namu is taking us through this story and what they found out. Keep it right here, because when we come back, we continue this conversation.
We were a very profitable airline up to a point in time. The airline made decisions which were very critical in terms of expansion.
KQ made many strategic mistakes. In there, we have a lot of people who are incompetent.
KQ depended on just public relations.
And you look at the structuring, the kind of covert nature of some of the contracts.
So moving to be nationalized is not going to help.
Because you can't keep on throwing money, billions. We've been throwing it over the last 4 or 5 years.
I know there are many things that happened in the past that could have maybe been done differently.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, it's still mostly cloudy in Nairobi, overcast for most parts of the morning, going to highs of 27 and lows of 14 today. Nyeri is experiencing light rain showers at 16, likely to last for most of the day, highs of 24 and lows of 14. Nakuru is sunny at 13 degrees, going to highs of 24 and lows of 12. It's mostly sunny in Eldoret this morning, and it'll last that way throughout the day, going to highs of 22 and lows of 11. It's 19 degrees and sunny in Kisumu. It'll change later, though, with showers. Highs of 28 and lows of 18. It's mostly sunny in Kakamega at 16 degrees, going to highs of 26 and lows of 14 today with a chance of rain later on. It's going to be mostly cloudy in Mombasa throughout today. It's currently 16 degrees, going to highs of 29 and lows of 24. Partly cloudy conditions in Malindi at 26, going to highs of 29 and lows of 25. It's mostly cloudy in Kampala at 18, going to highs of 25 and a chance of rain in the afternoon. Mostly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam today, highs of 31 and lows of 22. Joburg is cloudy at 12, going to highs of 19 and a chance of thunderstorms later. Let's round things out in Lagos for now. It's partly cloudy, a break from the rain, highs of 29 and lows of 23.
Traffic.
Okay, guys, looking for an update on Mombasa on Thika Road rather, and whether the accident right around Safari Park has been cleared. Cops were still working on that a few minutes ago. Hopefully that will open up and be clear as you try to get towards the CBD. You're fine after Pangani, however, at the underpass. And then as you approach, you can take then going towards Forest Road. It's not too clogged up at the moment, heading into the CBD, or then taking the Globe Cinema overpass as you try to get into the CBD and onto Moy Avenue from there. You should be fine. Mombasa Road has the usual problems that we experience every morning, clogged up between Mlolongo and Cabanas. It's moving very slowly today. Construction on the way on the expressway continues, and it slows down traffic a little bit. Likely to be heightened today. It is Friday after all, on the end of the week. We have some people heading out of the city. Spice of MKE, and text us on 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
29 minutes to 8.
Mornings
The conversation continues right here on Spice FM, on KT and home and online, www.spicefm.co.ke. Kenya Airways, the fall of the pride. This is a 4-part series produced by African Censored team led by John Alan Namu, and the team actually did a very good job, City. You watch the 4-part series. Tries to go back into understanding what exactly happened to Kenya Airways, which was at some point really the pride. It's still a pride for many people, because you still have that feeling of ownership, and you feel that Kenya Airways belongs to us. It's ours.
That pride is severely dented.
Really,
It's damaged.
Bye.
You know, if you use that airline as often as some people did, I was one such person, and you knew that other people from around the world not only relied on that airline, but took their business to that airline instead of their own airlines, it indicated to you just how superior that airline was. Now, that's where the pride was. It was a quality airline. Whether it is the meals, it was the service, everything about that airline was perfectly world-class. Now, when you see that descending to the depths it has descended to, and you know very well that that is as a result of some efforts people have made to bring it to its belly, that pride is then dented, because it was done by our own people.
John, as you hear CT say that, would that be the reasons why you do a story like this, or an expose of this nature? Are those some of the reasons why? Because something that held such pride and was globally renowned and then falling to its belly, would that be one of the reasons why you would want to find out exactly what happened?
For sure. I mean, at Africa Uncensored, what we do is we work in the public interest. So any story that is in the public's interest to understand, then we'll go into. But for Kenya Airways, for sure, there was some attachment. There is an attachment. For me personally, like I said, it's an important airline to my life. The first time I ever flew on an airline, it was a Kenya Airways plane, right? And if you think about it, how many of the things that we call truly Kenyan that are global can we stand up and say, so we can count our athletes. And Kenya Airways is one there, and there's our tourism, etc.
Yeah.
But Kenya Airways was an ambassador to the world from Kenya. To see it fail in the manner that it has is not only disappointing, but a very important thing for Kenyans to understand. And that's the approach that we took. That it's really something that must be uncovered for Kenyans to be able to understand.
Do you think we'll get the answers? And I ask this question with caution, because there's so many other things that are going on in the country at the same time for which answers are being looked for, but then it has been shrouded in ambiguity. Everybody's saying yes, well, something may have gone wrong, but fingers are not being pointed in the right direction. So, I mean, there are many things that are going on right now of this nature. Do you think that the answers to this will come out?
I have to be philosophical about that, to be honest. And this is just coming from my own experience, having covered other things. Many times you will get to the point that we've reached, right, where answers are important for people to either get closure, to be able to understand and make decisions going forward. But the mist, the fog of our current state has been there in the past, and I'm not very hopeful that we will get the kind of focused answers that we require, especially at a time when it's being renationalized. I really hope that we do. But the goal of Africa Uncensored is over and above trying to get these answers, is to add to the institutional memory of the public, so that when those answers do come, then we can turn around and say, well, these were the questions that led to this. So eventually, I hope that they come. I hope that they come soon. But I really have no control over that, and past experience has taught me to be more philosophical about these things.
Looking at what you unearthed when your team was speaking to the various current managers of Kenya Airways, is it important to look at the past so that they are able to then move forward? Or are they saying that let the bygones be bygones, we are where we are and we have an airline to run, so let's just focus on the future?
Well, that's basically Mr. Kabuka's point of view, that we are where we are, let's look forward, let's try and sort out what we have currently facing us. But the past is prelude, right? If we do not understand what happened in the past, what stops it from happening again? And I'm saying this even knowing Mr. Kabuka's record with, propping up and turning Jambo Jet into a successful subsidiary of Kenya Airways, right? But nonetheless, he is one person, right? It took very many things for Kenya Airways to get to the point that it's reached. And he must have a very good grasp, and not just him, but all of us must have a very good grasp of the problems that Kenya Airways has faced. And I think even when the interview was being done by our producer, he continuously made this point that, look, we're looking at what problems led us to the point that we are at, so that there's that understanding. So it's very important for us to understand our history. Speaking more generally, if we understood our history perhaps with more nuance as Kenyans, then many of the mistakes that we're making today, even if we made them, we'd make them knowing that we know the mistakes that have happened in the past and we're making these deliberately. At least then that absolves you of some sort of ignorance. But we must understand what's happened in the past, specific to this company.
When you think of Kenya Airways, I like to delve into history. There was a period when, during the time of President Moi, something that you would think would never happen actually happened. You would think that if you have an organization or an institution that has monopolistic powers and is in charge of a service that is actually needed, that it is not possible for it to collapse. Unfortunately, we saw it actually happening. Kenya Post and Telecommunication, a monopoly, no competition. You're providing a service that everyone needs. Kenya National Assurance, again, something similar. Now, these are institutions that collapsed before our very eyes. It's not something that you have to delve into deep history. It happened, and it's a reality. But then, what was interesting about Kenya Post and Telecommunications, Telcom was not part of Posta. There was what they call ex-telecoms. It was a separate entity and actually a profit-making. Then they merged them. These processes of mergers, somehow when the government is involved, never do well for those who want to see a profit. That's why people move away from nationalizing institutions and making them open or making them business enterprises whose focus is, yes, on providing service, but also trying to make profit. It takes me back to the role of government. The government is not a business entity in that sense of the word. The government primary role is to provide services. Now, the government is telling us they want to go into business. How's that going to work out?
Well, CT, you've raised very, very pertinent, examples, right? With Kenya Post and Telecommunications and the national insurance. I can't help but agree with you that it's really not government's place to be doing business. It should be enabling the business environment. But then again, the one example that is constantly bandied about is Safaricom, right? So one of Kenya's most profitable companies, and when run fairly well, it was able to post huge profits to the extent that Safaricom is a behemoth that it is today. But Safaricom is kind of a unicorn, where we really have to think very carefully and strategically about what this decision will be. Now, I can't on one hand say that, renationalization is a bad decision because, perhaps I don't have all of the cards that the president and the cabinet are holding in terms of what their strategy will be. Perhaps there's an opportunity that other strategic assets that the government will take it seriously, and perhaps we might have to lean on the side of optimism when it comes to this, but the past shows us that many times this is a problem. This is an issue, right? And in as much as that was made in the documentary was that in as much as we're nostalgic, the decision that we make, especially as Kenyans who are very price sensitive, will often come down to price versus quality. Am I going to fly on Kenya Airways because it is Kenya Airways, or am I going to fly on it because it offers a cheaper ticket, it offers better quality service, and it flies me to the routes that I need to go to? These are the kinds of decisions that are being weighed right now. And the problem is we also don't have a lot of runway to make these decisions because Kenya Airways is in dire debt distress, right? It's facing very severe problems. And the support that the government has given it to this point in time has not been adequate for it to be able to manage, the problems that it has. Yeah. Even though it's making money, the mountain of the problems on its back are really something that they're struggling with. I really, really sympathize with the staff who are flying on those routes at Kenya Airways because they work as hard as they can. That's really, if you're looking for an example of the people who we must think about, that we should think about when we're making this decision. Those guys who earn their livings directly from Kenya Airways. Then now speaking more widely, if Kenya Airways were to collapse, right? What would the impact be to the wider economy? Yeah. I know there are some people, including people in our documentary, who have said that it should be allowed to fail and then we start again. But I think the reason why so many businesses, and this is just me speaking generally, right? The reason why so many businesses globally have been able to locate themselves here is a number of things. Good business climate, good weather, good connectivity, right? And Kenya Airways is a part of that, troika, if you call it that. If it collapses, then what lies on the other side of that collapse? None of us know, right? So at this point in time, we're really making decisions or really, postulating on the basis of things that have happened in the past. So, CT, that's how I'd answer that question. That, look, the past doesn't give us a lot of confidence that things going forward will be better. But nonetheless, we're at a very critical junction where if we do not make a decision, then the alternative could be worse.
As you speak now, there's a bill before Parliament that is, seeking to move the airline towards that place of renationalization. And I'm sure your team, as they were working on this story, they must have also spoken to people who had an opinion on the current goings on. What is it that comes out? Is there widespread support for the renationalization? Is there a greater opposition to it? What is the vibe?
Well, the vibe is that there's quite a bit of opposition. If you look at what LSK has done to go and stop the renationalization of Kenya Airways, that tells you that even at that level, that there's quite a bit of opposition to what's happening. I think we're in a position, like I said, where there are decisions that are being made where we don't have a clear understanding as to why, beyond the fact that Kenya Airways is loss-making. Why this decision? Why not a bailout? Why not other options that we have to try and prop up the airline and try and keep it profitable? Why not, insisting, like, for instance, one of the issues that were raised by some fairly senior managers that I spoke to were when Kenya started inviting other airlines to land in Kenya, there was no reciprocity, right? Yep. So you're inviting your competition here, but you're not getting the same sort of fair shake on the other end when you land, right? And that makes it expensive for you to operate even in the face of your competitors. Why are those kinds of decisions being rethought? Another thing was the partnership with KLM, which is coming to an end, which really held us in a position where we could only fly to specific places in Europe and other destinations that possibly weren't even profitable for us. Are we now going to reconsider and try and get to better routes? Why is nationalization the only thing that we are, considering? Is it the best option? And given that now Kenya Airways is going to become a fully public asset, or at the very least, the government is going to play a bigger role, shouldn't there be a more nuanced discussion about where Kenya Airways is going? Understand the time limitations that we face as Kenya Airways, but it's really, really important that we make the next decision very, very well. Look to the south. South African Airways has all but collapsed, right? Are we going to go down the same route?
Let me just throw in the cat among the pigeons here then, just off the back of what you've just said. The timing of the release of this piece by Africa Uncensored, the sort of slant that this story has taken, the questions then would emerge. Why now? Who is this that is, urging you, nudging you, Africa Uncensored, to produce this story? To what end are you producing this story? Are you working on behalf of, either knowingly or unknowingly, people who are against a move to renationalize Kenya Airways and bring it to profitability?
No, we're not. I can say that with absolute certainty that we're not working on, we're not working for anybody, or we are not being nudged by anybody to make any decisions about releasing this documentary at this point in time. The point here is we started working on this documentary more than 6 months ago, right? The time that it came to fruition was now. Fortunately for us, that it's come at a time when there is a debate about renationalization. But there was no intent to now, when Kenya Air is about to make this move, then we release this documentary. I think what has happened, if I'll be perfectly honest, is that there are people out there with their own specific interests who are now riding on the content that the story has unveiled to try and pursue their own agendas. But we can't be responsible for what other people are doing, with a public interest story. The painstaking measures that we took to go through documentation, to try and seek comment. In fact, one of the things that delayed the release of this story should have been out at least a month earlier, right? What delayed that was trying to seek comment from Kenya Airways staff, right, as well as other people, like, for instance, people who are part of the Senate committee, and try and tie up our facts and fact check everything to make sure that we were right on the money. So I understand that some critics would be very upset by the timing of the documentary, but on our part, we did not purpose to try and make it, come out at a point when Kenya is struggling with the courts, it's struggling with the unions, it's struggling with all of these things.
Yeah.
But the point is, these are pertinent questions that need to be asked anyway.
And in terms of information that needs to be given to people, I mean, looking at something that, many would see as an asset for the country, and they're not really understanding what is happening. I mean, do you find yourselves in a place to give information? Because for many a Kenyan, it would be, here you had something that was the pride in the sky and then has taken a nosedive and then would die and join the graveyard of other failed things, in the country. So now really giving information as to what happens, how important of a role do you think that as giving information plays in all of this? Whichever decision is made.
Well, information is really important. Information, as they say, is power, right? So the documentary seeks to do that, to really give people an account of the decisions that are being made, the loss-making ventures that Kenya Airways went on, and the decisions that face it in the future. So information is very powerful. If I understand your question, is are we willing to go out and give this information, say, to a committee that investigates this question? Yeah. And the truth of the matter is, beyond some of the confidential sources that came forward for the production of this documentary, and some of the, like the Deloitte report, etc., majority of this information already is in the public domain. It is in Kenya Airways' own company annual report, right? So what we did is that we went through the report and published the information in a manner which that people could understand.
Right.
But this information had been widely known before. Perhaps it had never really been in one place. And I think that's the role of the documentary, to curate the information so that people are able to digest it.
Sorry, go ahead, Sidi.
No, I was going to ask, do you think, for instance, that if the government took a little more time to actually piece together its argument for nationalization, and if it was convincing, that perhaps the backlash would be lessened?
I think so. I think if the government really took time to both look through the decision, because I think part of the big motivation for this was also actually coming from the National Assembly, right? But if the government took its time to really painstakingly go through this and go through it with the public, right, explain the decisions that they are making, then there would be less backlash. Not all of the backlash would evaporate, because there are still people who are very, very critical of the move. But at the very least, it would give people some sense of peace with where the direction in which we are moving and why we are doing so. But this is the story, if I'm to speak again widely about BBI, right? So we are given a very broad explanation about what it is about, but there's nothing more. We're just being told a report is coming, but at the same time we're being told a referendum is coming. Both things that are very important to the future of this country. It's kind of the same thing with renationalization, where we're told we're renationalizing, right? And here's the bill, and this is what's going to happen in the bill. But the logic and the future of Kenya Airways is not really being explained to the public, who are going to be carrying this national asset, in years to come. That's where I think the government can play a key role. The Ministry of Transport specifically can play a key role in helping people understand. And then if people disagree, then you must also rule with the consent of the people, right? If the people disagree, then there must be other options to make, right? It's easy for me to say this not sitting in the boardroom of Kenya Airways, but having seen the kind of things that we've seen, then it's also the right of Kenyans to ask these questions.
John Allen, we want to thank you very much for joining us this morning and speaking to us about this documentary that you've produced as Africa Uncensored, Kenya Airways, Fall of the Pride. Before we let you go, there's some development on a story that you've also been following for many years, and this is on the arrest of Felicia and Kabuka. Now the decision has been made that the trial is going to happen in Arusha. What do you make of that?
That's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting that it's so close to where the crimes in Rwanda were took place, And what measures will be taken, interestingly, to secure Felicia and Kabuka, as this trial takes place? I'm sure there are a lot of people who are very, very interested in ensuring that Kabuka meets an end, whether through courts or otherwise.
Right.
What measures are being taken to do so? It's a coming, it's full circle, really. That the man who, at least from what the evidence says, was one of the key motivators of one of the worst stains on Africa's conscience, is now sitting in trial however many years later. It really tells you that the arc, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice, as Martin Luther King used to say.
Right.
Indeed. Asante sana, John, for speaking to us, and say hello to your team at Africa Uncensored. Good job. Well done.
Asante. Thanks a lot for talking with me about it.
Thank you so much, John.
Have a good day.
All right, you too.
It's the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM online, www.spicefm.co.ke, and Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also on KTN Home. Keep it right here, because also in the next hour, we will be talking about the reunification of Germany. 30 years later, what has happened, what has worked, what benefit have the Germans derived out of this? Good morning.
We were a very profitable airline up to a point in time. The airline made decisions which were very critical in terms of expansion.
KQ made many strategic mistakes. In there, we have a lot of people who are incompetent.
KQ depended on just public relations.
And you look at the structuring, the kind of covert nature of some of the contracts.
So moving to be nationalized is not going to help.
Because you can't keep on throwing money, billions. We've been throwing it over the last 4 or 5 years.
I know there are many things that happened in the past that could have maybe been done differently.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. 87.9 Spice FM. Mombasa. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Just recapping that conversation that we've had with John Alan Namu on the pride of Africa, Kenya Airways, the issue of nationalization. And I think I agree with what you said, City. If the government took time to explain its thinking, to have more conversations with more stakeholders and everybody else, to understand what the future would be then with the renationalization, it would face less resistance because people would be coming from a point of understanding.
The resistance tends to be more like this thing is being shoved down your throat. This is what we want to do. Parliament, this is what we want you to do. Here's the bill, pass it. It's like that case I mentioned that about the student in Kenya who unfortunately was killed by a watchman. Now, people will resist if you give them an ultimatum. They will fight back, even when the thing that is actually being touted is actually good.
They'll push back.
Oh, they'll push back.
And typical of what we've seen in the country, if you don't understand something, then you see that there's something afoot. There's some underhand deal going on.
If you don't give information as to what is actually going on, what you've done is that you create a vacuum and then you give people an opportunity to speculate. And from there, the first destination they will arrive at is that somebody is involved and they've done something wrong.
And if you look at it against the backdrop of what's been happening in the country lately, the government scorecard isn't really good.
Not very good.
Not really.
From the mess to another scandal to another.
To KEMSA. So.
Anything that has an M and an S has a problem.
Fortunately,
KQ doesn't have it.
Even if it flies. The thing is, you see, the government may be judged harshly, but they aren't acting in their own best interest because it's simple. Of course, it's simple for me sitting here talking, but it's simple. Try and make a little effort in explaining it so that people can understand your thinking.
Indeed. Keep it right here. More conversations in the next hour. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, still on Mombasa Road with some traffic today, and let's look at another part now towards Donholm. If you're headed in that direction, it's moving very, very slowly this morning. Bumper to bumper traffic is what we are seeing. Mombasa Road as well, inbound to the CBD. Today, we're going to have some problems. It's clogged up, and because, yes, again, I was saying it to you blue in the face, because of the construction that's going on the expressway, this is what's going on. It's not moving as smoothly as we would enjoy, but guys, this is something we're going to have to deal with. Thika Road, getting into the CBD as well, moving very slowly right around Survey. The service lanes actually are up and can be used. Coming off of Kiambu Road, however, there is jam there, as is every morning. So there we need some patience. Little pockets where there's traffic. Outside of the city actually is looking pretty good today. Not too bad considering that it's Friday and everybody's headed out. All right, let us know where you might be stuck and why. We'll spread that information. Text us on 40127. Tweet us, SpiceFMKE.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
2.5 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues this hour. Welcome back to our audience on KTN Home. We are still here with you until 9 o'clock. On Spice FM, 94.4 in Nairobi, in Mombasa, 87.9, in Malindi, 97.7, Nyeri, 90.9, 96.7 in Eldoret, 96.0 in Nakuru, 102.5 in Kisumu. C.T. Muga, as we begin this hour, tell us today's proverb.
Well, today's proverb doesn't fall in the category of wise sayings that have been handed down over the years. This one is more current and more contemporary.
It has been created.
Yes, it's a Kenyan proverb by a group called Team Mafisi. We refer to them as a tribe. And this is the saying, this is the proverb. If you lose your girlfriend in a crowded bar, just start talking to a beautiful woman and she will reappear.
Okay, always gets me, that one. Tim Mafisi. We are joined by a guest in the studio this morning, and this is the German ambassador to Kenya, Ambassador Annette Gunter, welcome to the studio. And asante sana for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the Situation Room. We normally refer to that seat as a hot seat. We will make it warm enough for you. We want to talk about the reunification of Germany 30 years ago, 1990. East, West came together. Where were you? Were you on the East or on the West?
I grew up on the eastern side, behind what people used to call the Iron Curtain. It's also called the Berlin Wall, but it was not only a wall in Berlin.
Yep.
It went right through the whole country. So I grew up in East Germany, and on the night of the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was the 9th of November in '89, I was in East Berlin. I was sitting there with a girlfriend chatting, like these girls' evenings, bottle of wine and talking about boys or whatnot. And then, of course, in East Berlin, we were listening to West German radio,
Right.
RIAS at the time. And so we were listening, and then they were telling us the wall has come down. People starting to climb the wall. And we were sitting there, and we couldn't believe it. And we said, like, isn't it mean enough that we are on this side? And now they are telling us this bullshit. Really, we did not believe a word. And we continued to sit there for another 2 hours, like talking about, oh, if that were true and what would happen to the economy, to the country. We didn't even go check. And
So at
we
first
were like,
you thought it
we
was
were
Western
like
propaganda.
1 kilometer away from the next border post. We didn't go. And at the end of the evening, I sat in a tram and I went home. And I passed actually quite along the border. I didn't see anyone. I didn't go check. Only the next morning, when I heard it again on the radio, I thought, oh my God, I must check out. But at that time, we didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have social media. So you couldn't check. Many East Germans didn't have TV. So how would you find out? So I went downstairs into the street to a public phone and called the only friend I had. I knew had a phone at home. And I called him and said, like, have you heard this? And he said, yes, I've heard. Let's go downtown, let's meet and check out. So it took like 12 hours for this to sink in and to go. So we met at the university in East Berlin, and then we went to the border, and then we saw what's going on. So just what I want to explain, it was very unexpected. It was a big surprise. There has been this protest going on for quite a long time in '88 and '89, but nobody would ever have expected this.
Why didn't they expect that such a change could come?
Because the system, we grew up in a system of complete control of the party, of the state, of the secret service. People never had the feeling we can change much. And I think even the protesters, who were very brave people at the time, because many of them ended up in jail and whatnot, they were just fed up with discrimination and no freedom of speech and of liberties, of going other countries. So they were fed up and they started to protest. But I think this was a real surprise. Nobody thought it would go that far.
And even as you remember it now, you've said something that struck me, because you said when you heard that the wall had come down or the Iron Curtain had been shifted, people were actually climbing the wall. So this is obviously something that you would have never dreamed would have happened. People were crossing over to the other side, you know. So is that what the life was? That really it was divided, that you couldn't actually get to the other side?
No. We were basically locked up in our country. The system was probably scared that people, when they go to the West, they would never come back, which was probably a mistake. No, it was not true. People loved their country, and they would have come back. And many people, I mean, officially you could ask to leave the country, and some did. But then your family, your kids, everybody had problems. If you said, I don't like the system, I want to go, eventually many were let go. But no, I think if they had let people go and travel the world, they would have come back. And many people decided not to apply to leave the country because they loved their family. And they knew they would not be able to come back and to never see each other again. So, yeah.
But the truth is, they did allow people to leave the country.
Yeah, but it was not easy, and then you might lose your job, and you had a lot of repression until the very moment when you were allowed to go. But people did go, some officially, and some tried to cross the border, and many died on that border. You know, the army, they would shoot people who tried to cross the border.
You grew up in Berlin.
No,
Did you?
I grew up in the south of East Germany, in a city that was then called Karl-Marx-Stadt. Very communist name. I think Karl Marx was never in that city, but it was given that name because it was a center of industry and center of industry, and that's why it was called that. But the original name was Chemnitz, and it was given back that name a few years after reunification. The people wanted to get rid of that name, Karl-Marx-Stadt.
I was asking about Berlin because, okay, let's talk about those adult years when you were in Berlin, especially at this time when this event happened. When you were living in East Berlin and you knew that there's across the other side of Berlin, people are living in a completely different system, completely different lifestyle, did you have an idea what kind of life, forget about what the news would tell you about the systems of government and everything else, did you have an idea of what kind of life the ordinary person, the ordinary Annette across the wall was living like?
I think we had a pretty good idea of what the situation was like because in Berlin in particular, but everybody who lived close enough to the border could receive West German TV and radio. So we could watch the news, we could watch films, we could watch comedy shows. We were fully informed of what was going on over there.
Were you envious of that life?
In a way, yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah. But on the other hand, we were also a bit, I don't know, disillusioned and frustrated, and that we might never have that.
I want to leap forward now to 2020. 30 years of unification. Would you say Germany is fully unified?
No, it's not. And just recently, around this holiday, of course, there are a lot of documentaries about the past, the developments over the 30 years. And there was some statistics that economically, East Germany has not fully, regrown to the strength that West Germany had. But it's on a good way. The living standards are basically the same. Incomes and opportunities may still be a bit less in the East. There's only one company that's on the registered on our exchange. Only one of those big companies. Only one has the headquarters in East Germany. All the other big companies are in the West. So many people moved to the West. The job opportunities were there much better. But I think East Germany has found his own way and has developed its own strengths in what they could do.
What are these strengths?
There are areas in East Germany, especially in the north, on the coast. It's a very beautiful area where a strong tourism industry developed. That has not been there before. When I was a kid going to the Baltic Sea, now you have there lots of nice hotels and restaurants. So there's many jobs were created. There's a beautiful nature, so they use that opportunity. In other areas, there are very specialized industries in high tech, in car industry. So I think they found the niches and their strengths where they could develop. Many other things, unfortunately, could not be kept alive, but also we all had to accept the fact that in a free country, there is success, but also less success, and everybody has, and every industry and every organization, you have to find your way and you have to live with this, and that was a bit difficult in the beginning. But I think from that point of view, everybody is reunited. They have recaptured these opportunities.
So, if you're looking at complete reunification, What do you think would need to happen in order for that to be? I mean, you talk of changes that you can see now vis-a-vis what were when you were younger, or what other people experienced. And if you were to say that things would come together truly, what would need to happen?
Maybe there's still not enough exchange between the two sides, because many people still talk about the two sides, even though 30 years later, you know, talk about East Germany. Yeah, former East Germany. And even younger generations that were born after the reunification, still they say, there was this young girl in the documentary, she said, I go to Bavaria and in Munich everybody looks at me like I'm coming from the moon, you know? So there's still that feeling, these people come from East Germany, and there's still this surprise. So I think many people from the East went to the West because of the opportunities, clearly. But not many people from the West went to the East. You will find millions who said, I've never been there. I never bothered to go and have a look. So there's still some old maybe ideas in the heads of West Germans who never were in East Germany. How it has developed, how it has flourished, how it is, I mean, visually equal and not very different from the West. So I think there needs to be more exchange between the two sides and between the people from
But
both
looking
sides.
back, is it that the new administration of now the reunified Germany forgot that very important cultural aspect, or even just the human side aspect of encouraging integration, encouraging people from the West to move to the East as those from the East are moving from the West? Did it require perhaps government effort, deliberate government effort for that to maybe make it look better?
That certainly would have helped, but we only know better afterwards. Maybe nobody thought of that at the time. Nobody could knew how the reunification will work in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years. So, and I think many people thought it would be much easier, you know?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say they forgot it, but it would have it certainly would have helped. Because at the time, the only West Germans that came to East Germany were the ones who basically took over companies or took over administration. Of course, let's see the administration. The East German administration had to be adjusted to the West German standards and regulations and whatnot, and nobody had an idea, so someone had to come to do it. But they were always felt like a little bit teaching us what to do and knowing better. So in the first years, this relationship was not such a friendly one.
Yeah.
So this is overcome now. So I think the East Germans have taken over their own administrations and their own companies and all this. But in the first years, especially those who came were more teaching us what to do. So that was not taken. That was not taken lightly and kindly.
So would you say at some point those who were then in East Germany felt they were marginalized?
In some way, they felt inferior. And maybe in many instances, they were also given the feeling that they are inferior. Or they didn't have the self-confidence to say, no, I can do that. I don't need that West German guy to come to do my job or to tell me how to do my job. So I think it was not intentionally, but they were given that feeling, or they had this feeling of being inferior and didn't have the self-confidence to say, no, we can do it ourselves.
Looking at current situation politically, do you feel as if the people from the East and the people from the West think the same politically when it comes to electing their leaders? Do you have parties that are as strong in the West, in the former West, as they are in the former East? Or do you still have those lines in terms of political ideology and political support for parties and personalities?
No, I wouldn't say that, because you can see from the coalition part, from the ruling parties in the various federal states. So you have Social Democrats in the West. They have always been there. Of course, you can see them in the East. After the reunification, I think the Social Democrats were very strong in the east, surprisingly, because understandably many people were maybe fed up with socialist ideas and whatnot, so they were attracted to that. And of course, the then Christian Democrat Party was the one that brought the reunification, you know, Helmut Kohl. So they were very popular. So, and things are shifting. So the Greens are strong in the east, but they're also strong in the west. So there's you know, I wouldn't say that there's a difference. There's a mix all over the country.
You know, you talk of unification, and you look at a country like ours, where we have very strong tribal sentiments, especially when it comes to politics. What can we learn from the German unification process that would unify our country, despite and in spite of our tribal leanings?
Well, I hope you don't have to wait 300 years to unify your country, because if you look back to the 15th or 16th century, there were all tribes and little kingdoms in Germany, or in what is Germany today, fighting each other. You know, the Prussians and the Bavarians and the Franconians, you know. So, and they grew together as a national state over hundreds of years. Yeah. And today, these tribes are still there in the names of the federal states. You have Hessen, you have Franconia, you have Bavaria, you have Saxony, and all that. But not so much in the head of the people, you know? You can tell by the dialect of a person where it's coming from.
Right?
I mean, everybody knows I'm coming from Saxony. You just hear it when I speak. And of course, they're making fun about each other. You know, there are all sorts of jokes, you know, about the Bavarians, about the Berliners, about, you know, everyone. But it's not in a controversial, fighting way, you know. Everybody, I think, feels German first, then maybe Bavarian, but it's not a political thinking. It's just the remembrance of those tribes 400 years ago.
Would you say Otto von Bismarck played a very important role in all this?
What?
Otto von Bismarck.
Yes, at some point, the tribes, obviously, or the kingdoms, realized that coming together makes them stronger. Of course, you need an enemy. Usually, you need an enemy to come together to be stronger. And again, I hope you don't need an enemy. But maybe the enemy is just the overall development. I mean, if you want a strong society that can provide for everyone, a strong economy, then, you know, it would be maybe better to come together and work together for that, instead of every little tribe doing their own thing. So I don't really have the solution, but for the German nation, yes, it made the country stronger, and probably it provided for a better life of the people to come together and work together instead of fighting each other.
You've spoken about it, and you've called it actually the German nation. So after the reunification, you've said everybody now feels German first, and then now you go back down. When you look at other countries, just looking at reunification as a symbolism for the rest of the world, case in point, Kenyan politics and Kenyan nationhood. There are very many things that people keep saying, have we really managed to build a Kenyan nation? Have we really managed to make everybody in Kenya feel that they're part of Kenya? Or do we still go back into thinking, I am first Luo, Kikuyu, Luya, then Kenyan? And then how do we transition from that? It's even contained in the draft BBI report, that the issue of creating a nationhood, of bringing that cohesion together as a country is important. Taking the lessons of Germany in the past 30 years, how would you say would be a good way of ensuring that we all feel as a nation?
This is a difficult question. Equal opportunities. As long as I feel like an East German and I feel inferior and I will not make it in this country because it's dominated by, let's say, the West Germans, then I feel bad. And then I will feel East German first and then German second. But if I have equal opportunities, and it doesn't matter where I come from, where I grew up, what's my hometown, then I will feel German first, you know, and I don't have to fight my way to the position that I want. So I think equal opportunities for everyone, and equal also economic opportunities, so equal development for all the regions in the country, equal education opportunities for everyone. So if I get the same quality education in each part of the country, if I have the same chances in life in each part of the country, then I don't have to feel superior, inferior, or whatever, then I'm a Kenyan.
So what I hear you saying is that it's a government's role to provide equal opportunities to everybody. Then that calls for a certain quality of leadership. What would that quality of leadership then be that ensures everybody feels that there is equal opportunity from wherever they come from?
Well, of course, it's the country, it's the government's responsibility to create the circumstances for that to happen, what I described. But I think a lot of opportunities lie in the devolution process, where the government and the regional government is also a government, and they have responsibility. And they are much closer to the problems of the people than the central government, you know. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in devolution to bring those opportunities and the development to the people in all parts of the country.
All right, let's take a break now, and then we'll be back and continue this conversation. We are speaking with German Ambassador to Kenya, Madam Annette Gunther. She is coming to us as we celebrate 30 years of the reunification of Germany. And when you come out of this break, we will now come and start looking at the relationship between Germany and Kenya, and what benefits we derive from each other. What benefits do you derive from having relationships with Kenya, and what benefits do we derive from having cordial relations with Germany? Of course, you have to go into the background of your work in other countries. You've worked in many other countries as an envoy. Give us those experiences and see how then we take advantage. 25 minutes past 8. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to
Nairobi
Spice
still overcast
FM.
in most parts. 17 degrees, and we'll see highs of 27 today. Nyeri at 17 degrees, also warming up just a little bit. We'll see highs of 24 and partly cloudy conditions throughout this Friday. Sunny conditions in Nakuru, and that's going to last throughout the day until partly cloudy. 24 degrees the high and lows of 12. Eldoret, mostly sunny at 15, going to highs of 22 and lows of 12. It's sunny in Kisumu at 21. It's going to change later, though, with rains. Highs of 28 and lows of 19. Mostly sunny in Kakamega at 18 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 14, and looking like we're getting into a wet weekend in the west. Partly cloudy in Mombasa at 26, highs of 29 and lows of 24. 24 will be the low in Malindi as well. Currently partly cloudy at 26. Moving out into Kampala, where it's partly cloudy at 19 degrees, highs of 24 with a chance of thunderstorms, actually, later on. It's mostly sunny in Dar es Salaam. At 26, it will go high to 31 and lows of 23. Johannesburg is cloudy at 12. Thunderstorms also forecasted for later, highs of 19 and lows of 12. And finally, for now in Lagos, it's 29 degrees and partly cloudy, highs of 29 and lows of 23.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Well, it's a little bit of a clog up on Thika Road trying to get into the CBD. Yes, there was that accident, but now has been cleared up. So a little bit of the dregs of that left behind. However, you should be fine. Right around the Pangani underpass is a little bit of a hold up, but then getting towards Fig Tree and then out towards the overpass, you should be okay. Forest Road also not giving too much in terms of drama this morning. Where the drama is, however, is Mombasa Road. And as you get down from the SGR through to Cabanas and then even further on to General Motors, you should be take you some time to get out of there. Then it opens up a little bit, and then again at Bellevue it's clogged up, guys, and then you get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. You'll have some traffic between Uhuru Highway at that point all the way through to Westlands this morning. It's busy. It's the beginning of the month. It's a Friday. Everybody trying to get out of the city, so we understand. If you get stuck somewhere, let us know. 40127 or tweet us on Spice FM KE.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
The conversation is back at 8:30. In the room, we have CT Muga Nduoko, Eric Latif, and we joined this morning, this hour, by German Ambassador to Kenya, Ambassador Annette Gunther. If you meet this particular vehicle on the road in traffic, 1 CD, 1K, it has a flag, just wave. She just might wave back. You know, one of those that 1 CD, that's... Why did Germany get the 1 CD plate?
The numbers in front of the CD, so
Yes.
the first number, basically indicates the seniority of the relative country's relation with Kenya. So let's say 1 means the first, and Germany was the first country to officially acknowledge Kenya as an independent country after independence. So we have
1.
Number 1, and the second number indicates it's the ambassador's car. So 1 CD 1K is my official car. Yes, you're quite right. And I'm very proud of that. It's very unique.
It is indeed. And it speaks about our relationship, the relationship between the two countries, which is what now we want to talk about, the relationship between Germany and Kenya over those years, since that moment when you were the first to recognize Kenya as an independent country. There are many things that, have happened. Let's just, for example, just talk about technological cooperation and the kind of benefits that we've derived from each other's countries. Last year, your president was in the country. No, was it last year? Was it earlier?
Earlier
This year. Yes, it was earlier this year. This COVID.
It has been a long year.
This COVID has just created a different year altogether.
It has extended time.
Yes, it has extended time. So at the beginning of this year, the German president was in the country, met with the president, of course, and they launched the technology center. What was it all about, and how far are we in that?
Yes, you're quite right. The president was here at the end of February this year, and it seems such a long time ago, huh?
Yeah.
It was the first visit ever by a federal president to Kenya, and looking back at how long our relations have lasted already, it was high time to do that, because Our relations are broad and deep and varied in many areas. But you mentioned the Tibet centers, and one of them was launched together with His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta in Kiambu, and this is because Tibet has become basically the core and the main focus of our bilateral relations, of our cooperation. Why is that? I mean, of course, development cooperation has changed over the years. The needs that you may have had in the 60s are different from the 70s or 80s. Today, we think, and I think we are very much in line with also the governments and the president's Big Four and all those initiatives, youth employment. But not only employment, but quality employment. Good professional training is basically the basis for good jobs, but also the manufacturing sector that the government wants to strengthen. If you want to do serious high-quality manufacturing, you need well-trained people. And in Germany, the listeners may know or not, the basis of the economy is not Mercedes-Benz or other big brands that are known here, Siemens and whatnot. It's the medium-sized enterprises. That's 80% of our economy. Why are they so successful, those small enterprises? Because they're highly specialized and they have well-trained, staff, workers. Otherwise they cannot compete in the world as small enterprises. So there's a long history in Germany of high-quality vocational training, which is a combination of vocational schools and working with the industry, so that the training is geared towards the needs of the industry. And while the young people are trained in the schools, they parallel work already in companies and get used to their job, be it mechatronics or electronics, but even be it in the medical sector, in the chemical industry. It's everywhere. And it has a long history. And I think you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have something that we think has worked for our economy very well. So we want to build up 3 centers of excellence. We have about 20 German, Kenyan companies on board that will work with those centers. We will develop the curricula. We will equip the workshops in those Tibet centers with the same high-tech machines that they will find in the companies. And then the students will be paired with those companies. And when they're done, they are immediately employable. And the employer knows what he's getting because he's seen the student before. He's worked with the student. And that's how it works in Germany. And we think this is a very good concept. And this is something that was very much welcomed by the government as one of the priorities. And I think even now, after COVID, I think it's even more important. It's even more important to bring young people into good jobs, into good education. And I'm telling people, because I think Tibet here has not such a high standing as a form of education. But I'm telling people in Germany, people who come out of a very high-quality Tibet training and they go to a company, let's say Mercedes, BMW, any German car maker, they make more money than a university graduate.
Right.
Okay? So in Germany, it's not like it's not prestigious. No, it's very good. You can make a lot of money if you have a good vocational training and you have a good company. You can make a lot of money.
Do you think the same can be replicated here?
Yes.
I mean, because you're looking at different climate, quote unquote, and I'm not talking about the weather. Do you think it can be replicated with what you see there? And would it be a change of mindset, or would it have to be an adaptation of the tangible things that you see?
I think we need to see the results. And it goes hand in hand in building up and strengthening the economy, and then building the well-trained workforce, and then bring it together. And I think that's when we will see the results. But also what we also support in many of our programs is support young entrepreneurs. Especially now after COVID, there has been a program where there was a call for young SMEs to apply for training and support, financial support. I think it was in the tourism industry and some other sectors, where we will select 50 young companies, young entrepreneurs. They will get training. They can get up to 9,000 euros financial support to build up their companies. So it's not only the big industry and the TVET, it's also the SMEs that need more support. We do the same in the agricultural sector, where we have programs. We have these centers for young entrepreneurs where they can come and get the training. So I think it's a mix of the official training, but also of the young entrepreneurs. But I think because there is so much knowledge and entrepreneurship in the country that can be used and that can be tapped in by these programs.
You talked about the fact that, the industry in one way or another kind of then dictates what should be taught in these sectors, which is, it's very clear that that's the way that it should be. So do you then think that then you kind of need a revamping or an overhaul of even what is being offered at some of these TVETs or even at the university level, to say that it shouldn't be something that sounds nice to the ear when you're getting your certificate, but something that you would actually then be able to use when you get out of school?
Yeah, I think general knowledge and training is, of course, always good. But the older you get or the more advanced you are in your education, then you have to think, okay, what am I going to do with it? What kind of job I imagine from, So I think there must be that link. That's why I'm said employable education, employable jobs. Something that is needed. Why should we train 2,000, I don't know, shoemakers if nobody needs shoemakers?
It's what's happening now here. It's what's happening. We've recently had, many institutions across the country have to. The suggestion has been, can we merge some of these things? The suggestion has been, why are we offering some of these courses, for example, that are not marketable, that are not employable? That has been the conversation running around for a lot. So that's why I'm saying that then to perhaps, employ this model across board where it's don't focus on filling up the halls with a nice sounding certificate course, but something that you can actually come out, and use.
I think this is part of the government's TVET strategy, the new TVET strategy, that it's competency-based, it must be employable, it must be linked with the industry. I think this is exactly the point where we're tapping in, and I think this is happening. But it has to go beyond. If we are successful, and then why not? Why should not a Kenyan company or Bata, like we talked about the shoes, Bata, why should they not link up with a TVET institution and say, look, this is what we need. These are the skills we need. Let's work together. So, as I said, we will not revamp the whole TVET system. We just build a couple of centers of excellence. We show how it can be done. If the country, the government, the people, if they like it, if it's successful, they can duplicate it. Then, they can scale it up. We don't want to dictate our system. We just showcase.
Madam Ambassador, there was and has been a discussion and understanding about a technical university. Tell us a little bit about it.
This is an idea that was actually developed by the two presidents at a previous meeting a couple of years ago. And I think this is also one of those examples, what we have in Germany, these schools of applied sciences, which is, again, it's a university, or you get a university degree, but it's very much oriented towards the needs of the industry or of the economy. Let's put it like this. And they were, again, these practical science schools, they work together with the needs of the economy and with the industry. And it's not it is. It's a very good education, but it's not only theoretical. It's oriented to the needs of the industry. So, and we thought this would be something very good to have here as well, because as I said, many university graduates, or you mentioned that, they come out of university, don't know what to do with it.
They don't have the practical skills.
So the practical skills and the needs of the economy are combined. The idea is not only to have it for Kenya, but we selected Kenya as the host country for such an East African School of Applied Sciences, so that also students from other countries can come. And we are still in developing the framework for it. We're working with the Ministry of Education and still trying to figure out how we can also link it up with this TVET, because the schools of applied sciences, again, they would train people who then teach in the TVET excellence centers. So I think there's a whole linkage to do to turn education more to the needs of the economy, of the society, of the industry, and that starts with the School of Applied Sciences and goes down to the school, TVET schools.
Talking about the needs of society, energy. Energy, yes. How much is Germany committed, the Federal Republic of Germany committed to aiding and assisting the Kenyan government with this sector?
This energy is another area of our cooperation. I think we have been, and Kenya is a champion. Many people may not know, but I think 85% or so of the energy production is done with renewables. There's big potential in solar, of course, hydro, thermo, geothermal, wind energies. So, and I think from the very beginning we have been very much involved in this geothermal energy production in Olkaria. That was already 10 years ago financed, or the first one was financed through our corporation. And we were involved in the wind park up in Turkana, where part of the financing came from Germany. So there's a huge potential, and we are quite a bit envious of that. But talking climate and pollution and climate change is not only energy production, it's also energy use. So there are many other areas where I think we can cooperate successfully, be it e-mobility. We have projects that try to develop just little pilots to have e-boaters, e-transport bikes, e-taxis, and whatever you can imagine in e-mobility, where you reduce the emissions. We also had a very successful program where I think, I don't know how many, I think it's like 500,000 or 700,000 households were supported with energy efficient and less polluting cooking appliances, where you don't burn wood or charcoal, which is not only the pollution a problem, but also, the chopping down of woods is a problem, to keep the environment and biodiversity. So, there are many, many areas where we are working with Kenya, and when there's a big potential for Africa in particular to actually also be on the forefront of those developments, because you can leapfrog from now to the future. In Germany or in Europe in general, everything is a little bit slower. But here you can just tap into those opportunities and leapfrog to the next stage. And you soon may have more e-bikes than there are e-bikes in Germany, because it's so much easier to advance those technologies in a country like Kenya.
Madam Ambassador, when you speak like that, talking about all the kind of cooperation that and assistance that you have offered with various programs, the question that comes to my mind is sustainability. And when you talk about sustainability, is the projects that you have funded or you have helped to start being able to sustain And this is by being taken up by the local government, either the national government, the county governments, or the various sectors that you're supporting, so that then they can move on. Do you see that kind of willingness to take up the projects, knowing and fully understanding that we are getting the support from the German government for 2 years or 3 years or 10 years, and after that we should be able to fully run this program going forward? I'm speaking about that because you said there are very many of these projects that over the years you've supported, and that we have the potential to leapfrog, but that potential can only be realized if those in those positions of authority have the will to take over the projects. Do you see that?
Well, as I said before, I think the character of our cooperation has changed over the years, and we try to not look too much at projects, and rather in policies that we would like to support. Of course, you need a project or a larger project to cooperate on a certain issue, but I think we want to support the government's policies into a certain direction. Let it be clean energy or e-mobility or more efficient agriculture. But I think the projects themselves have to prove that they are working and that they are viable, and then it's up to the local government or the central government to take it over, to embrace the idea, and then to continue. I think a project is only successful if it's able to live on its own after a few years. Sure. If the project still needs an input from somewhere, then there's something wrong with the project, you know? So I think the projects themselves, but we think in longer periods. So we look at our cooperation policies in up to 3-4 years. So I wouldn't say it's like it stops after 2 years and then the whole thing dies. So this is not how we want to work. We want to increasingly work with policies that we support, like the Tibet policy, like the e-mobility, like agriculture.
What are some of the challenges to this cooperation? Because this cooperation is between these two countries has been there for a very long time. What are some of the challenges that you've seen over time, hoping to overcome?
I don't see so many challenges. I don't know.
It's easy.
Very
Who talks
optimistic,
about
right?
the challenges.
Easy.
No, actually, it is quite easy because it is a cooperation. You know, just these days, actually, the whole week, we had talks with various line ministries, be it environment, be it agriculture, be it education, be it industry, transport, and also the Ministry of Finance, who's sort of like the central focal point for that. But we talk with our partners. Say, what are your priorities? Where do you want to go? Where can we help? What do you need? It's not like we come and think like, oh, we think our e-mobility is the best in the world and you have to take it. No. It's a cooperation, and I think it works quite well. Challenges are always there. Sure. There are administrative systems that, of course, we have to respect and we have to adjust. But I wouldn't say that there are too many problems.
Maybe currently there may not be, direct challenges in terms of the cooperation or in terms of even the relations that you have. But even if you just look back in the last couple of years, we've had German ambassadors in this country who have had what the administration would describe as fractious relations with, those in power, to an extent where you find that there's, it appears as if there's those in power and the person who's here as the German ambassador are not really speaking or seeing each other eye to eye on some issues. Would you say that, that is also beneficial to the cooperation that we have, the relationship that we have, that sometimes you agree to disagree?
No, we're not always on the same page, maybe from the very beginning, or there may be issues that need to be raised, On a political level, of course, I'm here representing my government vis-à-vis the Kenyan government. So our relations are friendly and deep and manifold, but there may be issues that need to be raised. then of course I have to go and say, like, my government thinks this or that. What do you have to say? But I mean, I myself haven't encountered any such serious cases, you know. Rather, we would try, again, we try to cooperate, you know. Where do we need Kenya, or where can we cooperate with Kenya internationally, you know? Like Kenya now becoming a member of the Security Council, very important, you know. And we are currently a member of the Security Council. So many of the issues that are very close to our politics, to our hearts, let's say multilateralism. The Alliance on Multilateralism just met 6 days ago in New York. Our minister invited, and the foreign minister of Kenya was there speaking. And I know this is one of the core issues of Kenya's foreign policy and its future UN Security Council policy, where they say we can solve the problems only together. We need multilateralism. We need strong international institutions. We need strong United Nations, and we are going to work for it. So here we can very strongly partner with them and support it. So that's what I'm saying. So I think we should increasingly try to find areas where we can work together stronger, be it on a national level, be it on an international arena. And I think Kenya is a very strong partner, especially on the international arena. We need Kenya's voice because we speak the same language there. We have the same priorities, women and peace. One of the very, you know, very, very important issues also for Kenya, also for our Security Council presidency. And we hope to have this dialogue, and we hope that these topics will be carried on through Kenya in the Security Council. So this is the kind of discussions we are having.
Have you ever encountered a situation where maybe our foreign minister has mentioned to you that we as Kenyans don't particularly like this perspective that the German government has?
No.
You must have
Sounds
been
like
having a very nice time so far. Yes, actually. I'm sure, Madam Ambassador, you know of some of your predecessors and the kind of relations that they have had with the government. Maybe it's a personality issue. It's how someone chooses to approach issues. Maybe that's the character that you have. Or maybe it's a different character that, you know.
Or Eric, it's a different time.
Oh, it's a different time. The context as well can be different.
And the issues that are probably coming to the fore are subject to that particular period of time.
Yep.
So you have come at a peaceful period.
Peaceful, yes, but very challenging and interesting. And I think this special crisis that we are all faced with, equally in America, in Europe, in Kenya, many people say, each crisis is a chance to do things better,
come out stronger.
grow and come out stronger. Yes. But you have to have something in your mind what that actually means. So, and I think this is a challenge to deepen our cooperation and to, I think I like better the version of build back stronger. You know, continue what we're doing, but now having the chance maybe even improving things that we are doing and getting more focus and seeing clearer what is needed. This crisis has brought to the surface so many underlying problems. Let's say in education, there's so many challenges.
Yep.
So this gives the chance. I mean, the time would have passed and everything would have kept doing what they've been doing. So, but now there's a challenge. So, what's wrong? What have we been doing wrong? And how can we, while we're trying to overcome, how can we do it better? Or in health? And this applies to every country. Now we see, in Germany, big thing. Our students don't have enough computers. We cannot do homeschooling, well enough. There's not only the villages in Kenya or somewhere where there are no computers. No, in Germany as well. Many young students don't have the computers and they cannot follow. So, we have somehow not quickly enough adapted to new teaching methods. And why is it? So, but now there's the chance to say, okay, now we do this, Now we equip the schools with all this, with whiteboards and all these new technical things that maybe some teachers have resisted to have, people are not so different from Europe to Africa to
every challenge is an opportunity.
But this is a chance to learn.
Yeah.
There was something wrong, let's fix it.
Let's
do it better. Build back stronger.
Indeed.
To improve things.
Ambassador Annette Gunther, we want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. And congratulations to the people of Germany as you celebrate 30 years of reunification.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank
it
you
was a
for coming
pleasure.
in.
Thank
Same
you for your interest.
We'd love to have you again so we can have more conversations on many of the projects that the two governments are actually collaborating on.
Okay. So our celebrations this year, unfortunately, cannot be the same way that they used to be,
Yeah.
you know, with many friends. But let me mention the Kikwete Festival, if I may, which is the first festival, music festival that brings together Kenyan musicians. First time after COVID. It's taking place on the weekend at Carnivore and Kikwete. The festival was founded by my predecessor, Ambassador Walter Lindner, who was a musician himself, and it still lives on. And German Embassy is still a strong partner of the festival. It's taking place this weekend at Carnivore. Please come, enjoy, and listen to your Kenyan musicians from young DJs to very well-known artists. So please join us. This is our celebration this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Asante sana, and we will do that. We want to thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room this morning, especially our audience on KTN Home, who will be taking a break. Join us again tomorrow on KTN Home, 7 to 9. But this conversation... today's Friday.
Another Friday.
Oh,
Eric, it's the first Friday.
It's the first Friday of the week, so
it's
okay.
it's the first Friday of the week.
Yeah.
All right, so join us on Monday, the first Monday of next week. 7 a.m. to 9 o'clock. The conversation continues every weekday morning, 6 to 10, right here on Spice FM. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa. In Kisumu, we are on 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and 97.7 in Malindi. In the next hour on Spice FM, we will cross over to Tanzania and look at the state of affairs in Tanzania as they gear towards the general election. We'll be speaking to one of the leaders in that country. Good morning. It's now coming up to 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
Okay, where's the club this morning? Still a little bit on Mombasa Road as you're trying to head towards the CBD, Uhuru Highway, and then through to Westlands. After Nyayo Stadium roundabout, that's where you're going to experience the traffic this morning. Thika Road, however, today is different because all butter and no jam. Absolutely smooth. I love it. After that accident that happened this morning, seems to have opened up everything completely. So enjoy Thika Road while you can, but be careful. Other parts of the city coming into the CBD from Langata Road, Gong Road, as well as Westlands. It looks pretty good, guys. So these are signs of a good Friday, I think. Being the first Friday of the week, I think it will be a good day as far as traffic is concerned. Prove me wrong. 40127. That's our SMS line. Or tweet us, SpiceFMKE.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
To after 9. The conversation continues, and thank you very much for tuning in this hour. C.T. Muga, as we begin the hour, remind us of Tim Mafisi and their wise saying.
If you lose your girlfriend, not girlfriends, in a crowded bar, just start talking to a beautiful woman and she will reappear.
These Mafisis. Okay, we'll talk about it later.
What?
So the ones who take food from the lions.
Mm-hmm.
Or the cheetah.
Hyenas, really, essentially, Team Hyena.
Okay.
If you have difficulties and problems within your political party, just go to the headquarters.
And the owners will reappear.
The owners will reappear.
All right. All right. Let's shift our conversation to Tanzania. A general election coming up, presidential election is coming up. What's the date for that election?
28th of October.
In 26 days, the election in Tanzania will be complete.
Yes.
How many candidates do we have so far? Of course, we know the main candidate is the incumbent, President John Pombe Joseph Magufuli. We know the opposition leader that we've spoken with before, and this is the lawyer Tundu Lissu, former president of the Tanganyika Law Society. We also have seen the kind of campaigning that has happened across the country in terms of, people turning up, the vibe, the government of John Pombe Magufuli going all out to show we have really transformed the country in the last number of years that I've been in office. And that's why I'm seeking a second term. And he appears completely confident that he's going to clinch this. But also the opposition, led by Tundu Lissu, is also appearing pretty confident that they are going to lead this.
Yeah.
The thing, though, is about the coverage of this election, the understanding or any information that's coming out of Tanzania with regards to the election. There have been complaints from, several outlets that there's a lot of control of the media narrative of what comes out of TZ. Is this founded? Is this not? Civil society organizations, some of which have complained about what's happening in their country. Even local civil society, local organizations in Tanzania, like the Law Society, the Tanganyika Law Society, and how it's run and how it's managed, and the voice that it's lending to the political landscape of the country. All these, are they founded on truth?
I would answer that question by asking another one. Have you ever witnessed a political contest anywhere on this planet where that back and forth of complaining that this isn't here, there aren't enough postal boxes to cast your vote in, the government who are in power there are always complaints. That is what you expect in an election competition. What we're hearing from Tanzania is what would be expected.
We hear that from Kenya. We hear that from
anywhere in the world.
I would be surprised if you didn't hear. Exactly. I would be surprised if you didn't hear such a thing. Just a few weeks ago, even from the United States, what did we hear Donald Trump say? He said that, look, I'm ready to counter this thing if the results come out and they're skewed heavily against us, and I'm going to ask that things like election malpractice be looked into, and we're not going to accept the results if we lose, kind of thing. Such things, if you didn't hear such things coming out in the run-up to election in any country, regardless of where it was, I think you would be a bit jittery. However, pre-election drama in Tanzania has been that, information on the country coming out of different outlets has been silenced, as it were, leading a lot of people to start this whole dictatorship rhetoric that has now formed a narrative that is being peddled across board in Tanzania. Kind of like a hold or a clog on certain things that you cannot say, cannot do, and then, the question marks have started to pop up in terms of, all right, so what does this really mean? And are those the tentacles that people who would be seen to be political activists are asking that Tanzania be then freed from in voting in a new president? Those are the questions that are coming up.
Are there complaints about the Electoral Commission or the Electoral Management Body?
If their complaints are not loud enough, where the Tanzanian situation becomes interesting is very many people who are now part of the opposition. It's very similar to Kenya, were once upon a time in the same party. So these aren't people who are alien to each other. They are people who've worked together. They even know each other's working style. But then this, again, these are some of the gifts that multipartyism bequeaths a nation. It allows you to compete, it allows you to differ, it allows you to be in one party at some point, it allows you to form or join a different party. So this is multipartyism doing its thing. Yes. Where it gets, should we say, a little ugly, is when you hear that there's harm, there's damage, people have been shot, people have been beaten up, people have been killed. Now, that's when now you wonder and you say, no, something isn't quite working right here. But if it's just at the level of people talking to each other, people talking at each other, people offering their views, so long as there's that, if it's views being traded, and then someone comes in with an option that is different, and you see instead of them responding with views, they respond with force, then you have to have this particular view that perhaps things aren't quite what you thought they were.
Then there's the other complaint about gagging that is actually happening now from the other side, from not directly, but organizations and institutions that feel that because they're aligned to the powers that be and they do not want to cross the powers that be, then they are also controlling the conversation and what is being said by everybody in the organization about the political landscape. We've seen that with several people who complain about, their organizations telling them, look, don't take a political stand. You're here in this country. Just
talk about anything else.
Just talk about everything else. Or just talk about your work. Were you employed here to talk politics or to deliver? So if you start talking about politics, whether you're talking politics in your own private forum, you represent us. We saw that with a law firm that had to let go of a senior partner. And then the senior partner was also now again let go from the role of advocates by the Tanganyika Law Society. And this is just because of what they considered political activism
to be.
Yeah, what they were just thinking, this is political activism. This law firm basically says, you're putting our law firm in disrepute because of your position. Just because you work here, we do not expect you to be political. Now we are getting into problems. What does this say about the political system then in the country?
What does it say about tolerance?
Yes, indeed. It's about tolerance.
Yes.
About openness, about some of these freedoms that we take for granted.
That it wouldn't be that essentially that those who then would say that it is not a politically tolerant society then have, some kind of merit to that belief. That it's if you find what would be a corporate entity then saying, you know what, we don't want to get into the mud with some of the things that you're saying, that means that there is that overriding fear or cautiousness when it comes to either being politically overt and not, you don't want to get on the bad side of the powers that be. And so for anybody who's on the outside looking in, then you would say then, what kind of society then do you have?
Also,
if the powers that be can gag what you say or put you in a position where you would be afraid to be as open as you would want to be, then there's a problem.
Yes, there's that also. And then let's not leave out the element of benefit. It may be that there may be benefit that accrue from your relationship with a government entity or the government itself. And in having that relationship, they do not expect you to tell them off when they go wrong. No. So your relationship is predicated on the understanding that there are certain things you look away from. There are certain things you will not say. That you will not join the band of people who ordinarily and periodically tell them, excuse me, this isn't quite working the way it's supposed to. Please shift these gears. But it's something that you find everywhere in the world.
It is indeed.
Yes. If you expect to benefit or if you expect to have cordial relationships with any entity that is considered a government power, many governments in the world, even the most democratic, do not expect you to go around pointing at things which they consider wrong. No. It isn't, I would argue.
Even in this country, in elections, we see that.
Yes, we do.
Even just as recently as the last general election, we saw that in some areas. There was, areas where you'd even say people in the media would feel that I don't want to take a story that goes completely off the rails here because of the expected repercussions. There was even rumor that some certain journalists were let go from their organizations because of how they were reporting, or
Certain
because
positions
of
that
the
they
positions that they appeared to have taken in the general election. I mean, it happens all the time, and we say that we have freedoms.
That's true. I mean, even in the same Tanzania that we're going to have this conversation about, we had journalists across board who had been arrested because of stories that they had written, and it would have appeared as if they were sponsored by, ex-party groups to write such stories or to carry out such truth. It has happened quite often.
Let's introduce our guest for this hour, and this is Madam Fatma Karume. She's an advocate in Tanzania. Fatma Karume joins us on the line from, where are you, Fatma? Are you in Dar es Salaam?
Yes, I'm in Dar es Salaam.
Good morning, and asante sana for speaking to us.
Good morning to you. Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome to the Situation Room. In the room, my name is Eric Latif. We have C.T. Muga and Nduoko.
Good morning.
Asante sana. General election coming up in Tanzania in a couple of weeks. We've seen the country has gone into full-blown campaign mode. A lot of conversations coming out from just the ruling party, the opposition parties. And we were here just talking about, the opposition. We know the one opposition party that's led by Tundu Lissu, who's a presidential candidate. But just for benefit of all of us who are tuned in this morning, do you know how many other candidates do we have in the presidential election?
I think it's in the 20s, I believe.
That's quite a number.
Yes, it is. I think it's never happened that we've had so many presidential candidates. But, the three candidates that people are looking at are Bernard Membe, obviously the incumbent, John Pombe Magufuli, and Tundu Antipas Lissu.
These other 17 candidates, are they people who have had, history of seeking electoral office, maybe running for other positions, probably even running for a presidential election before, or are they complete novices?
I think most of them are complete novices, except for Chauma. There's Chauma has had the same presidential candidate for the last two general elections, I believe. But really, the ones which people are looking at are those three who I have named.
Is the campaign issue-based so far, or is it all about all other euphoria, but not focusing on the issues? And what if it's issue-based, what issues are coming out?
On the part of, I've been following Tundu Lissu and obviously John Pombe Magufuli's campaign. And it appears to be issue-based because the problem that John Pombe Magufuli has is that he's been an incumbent and he's had 5 years in the presidency. Therefore, Tundu Lissu can look at the presidency in the last 5 years and say, this is the problem with this particular presidency in the last 5 years. And he is tearing all the errors that Magufuli has made apart, and he's pinpointing these errors to the people of the United Republic of Tanzania very effectively.
And are the people of Tanzania believing the things that they are being told, would you say?
Well, they have lived the 5 years, so it's not a fairy tale.
That was actually, by the way, what I wanted to ask was, is there any specific reason that you could come up with to explain why this time around there are so many people competing for the presidency?
It's very odd, actually, because you would expect, given the last 5 years and given the fact that John Pombe Magufuli started his presidency with a claim that he would have no opposition by 2020, you would expect that there would be very few horses in the starting blocks. So it's really quite an odd situation.
One of the things that, at least in this country, in our political scene, politicians have been accused of, some say rightfully so, is sponsoring candidates so that the political waters can be muddied sufficiently. Would you say that this is something that could happen in Tanzania as well?
Anything is possible in Africa, particularly in politics.
For the common mwananchi, the common citizen of Tanzania, do they believe that these political competitions can actually offer them some guarantee of a better livelihood and a better life?
I think they do. They have to believe that these political competitions can offer them a better life. Because what we see is, what is the evidence of that? So my view is the evidence of that is the fact that we see people going out en masse to vote. A high percentage of those people who have registered to vote are going out to vote. So for me, that's evidence that they believe politics is a way of improving their lives.
Okay. And how often would you say, for instance, that particular hope and realization is actually met? And this is against the backdrop that Tanzania has actually been led right from independence by one political party.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Because I didn't quite hear it.
Okay, let me start. Tanzania from independence has been led by one political party. So arguably, one could say that the people of Tanzania have actually not seen what someone who perhaps espouses the beliefs and philosophies of a different party can bring into power. So against this background, would you say the expectations of the Tanzanian people with the background that I have stated are realistic? Even as they hope for this change, this positive, is it something that they will ever actually realize? That's what I'm asking.
Look, I believe that change is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. It's sort of trying to hold back the tide. And if you try and hold back the tide, there will be some harm that will come of it, but eventually the tide will come in. And this is an inevitability. For me, the question really is how long the state apparatus is going to be used to hold back the tide and how much damage that will do to the country. So for me, those are the fundamental questions, but change will come. I have no doubt about that. There's never been in history a regime that has held on to power, milele, as Felicia would like to believe. It's not possible.
What are the indicators that change will come, Fatma? I mean, looking at things that you have been vocal about, they've gone ahead to be labeled as a political activist in Tanzania, and certain things that you've been asking for in terms of governance. And these are, as I see it now, and as you're saying this, there's certain things that will have to, I mean, the bow will break at some point. But what are some things that you think then would come in as a result of this bow breaking that need to change in the country?
I have always wanted there to be rule of law, an independent judiciary whose job should be to determine and conclude effectively and efficiently disputes between people and disputes between people and the government. And also to determine, to check and balance the government and parliament as much as possible. I would also like to see a responsible government, a government that takes cue from the people and does not tell the people what to do, but rather it takes its cue from the needs of the people and gives back to the people. What I see is it's a cabal of rulers ruling rather than a leadership that is listening to the needs of the people and wanting to serve the people. I want to see a police force that is serving the people and not serving a regime. I want to see an army that serves our country and the people of this country and not a regime. These are my dreams. I don't know if they would materialize. I want to see a parliament that is accountable to the people who have voted it into power, and not to the president or to the party infrastructure, the political party infrastructure. So these are the things I would like to see. And I think that our people, Africans, are entitled to it. It's our right. And we must never give up on that.
I mean, I'm hearing some of the things that you're saying, Fatma, again. And so obviously you don't believe that these things are happening under the current administration in Tanzania. And as you've spoken out about these things, I mean, in the recent weeks, you've lost your job as a result of that. Is that a big, is that an adequate sacrifice for some of these things that you're saying need to be done?
Well, when people say to me, you've lost your job, you've lost the right to practice in the courts in Tanzania, how do you feel about that? Well, listen, I always look at it and say, you can take things and look at them from a micro perspective and say, well, I've got a case, I'm going to court, and I'm just going to work on this case and try and win it. Or you can look at things from a macro perspective. And the macro perspective is, what is the judicial system like? Am I really achieving the justice that I would like to see? And in the end, and I always put it this way, I have felt for years and years and years like a rat, a hamster, not a rat, a hamster in a hamster wheel. You're just going round and round in circles, but you're not achieving anything, because ultimately the system is broken. You cannot have a system that imprisons more people without trial than it does people who have been trialed to conclusion. This is a broken system. So when you say to me, you've lost your job, what? There is, and this is the sad thing about, I think, us as Africans. Europeans have reached a stage when they look at quality as well as quantity. So you look at your quality of life as well as the quantity. We haven't reached that stage. I think very few of us look at the quality. So you practice for what? It's got to be a qualitative practice. It cannot just be a quantitative practice. It's got to be qualitative, because I'm worth more than that as a human being. I cannot go to work every single day and be in a situation which is not functioning. This is not qualitative. So I have to look at my life and say, what type of life do I want to lead? I'm 51 years old. I don't have much life left, and I want it to be qualitative.
At what point in your 51-year journey did you realize that the system is broken? When was your Damascus moment?
My Damascus moment, I don't think there's such a thing as a Damascus moment. I think it piles up on you. It builds up on you. It builds up on you until you get to a point where you think, you look back at your 25 years of practice and you think to yourself, the question I asked myself, would I recommend, why do I go to court? And when did I reach, what do I say to clients when I go to court? Do you know what I say to clients? Mm-hmm. We're going to court, but it's not to resolve your problem. We're going to court to hold back the tide for as long as possible until the other side comes onto the negotiating table, and then we can resolve this problem. When you reach that stage, you realize that your job as an advocate is not to advocate for someone to win a case anymore, or for the judiciary to resolve a problem for you. Then you have to look at, in the last so many years, how many problems, 25 years, how many problems have you actually resolved through the judiciary? And frankly speaking, none. None.
If you look back
and then you have to ask yourself, is this my purpose in life? Is this what I spend my life doing? So it's about the qualitative nature of a human being. And unfortunately, I think the problem, I don't know where this comes from, but the problem with us in Africa is we're so intent on hula leo instead of looking at I only have one life to lead. What type of life do I want? Do I want to be a life with some purpose, with some meaning, with some fulfillment?
At what point did you, if you look back at this very interesting journey that you've gone through, at what point did you arrive at this clarity that you're now expressing?
I think I arrived at it maybe about 2-3 years ago. And so the issue then for me, at the point where I started running for the Tanganyika Law Society, because I could see that the system was not only broken, but they were intent on breaking it even further. When there were attacks on the Tanganyika Law Society, the amendment of laws to attack the limited independence of the Tanganyika Law Society, the practice in Tanzania. So these attacks were very evident. And so I ran for the presidency because I thought maybe I could somehow stem this tidal wave of attacks on our civil liberties and actually show them that there's a problem, with a systemic problem. And that's when I tried, and I tried very, very hard. But then it became an ego issue because you're dealing with men who have extremely huge egos. For the first time in the history of the Tanganyika Law Society, I was not allowed to address Law Day, and the judiciary made up some excuse. I mean, it is really tragic, and I think when you look at the history, we will look back at the history of this time. There will be a lot of people who should be extremely ashamed of themselves that they were unable to do their jobs as gatekeepers for our democracy.
We're looking at the situation in Tanzania in this hour, speaking to Madam Faith Karume. She is an advocate, a political activist as well in Tanzania, immediate former president of the Tanganyika Law Society, who has now been, shall we say, disbarred by the Law Society and now cannot practice.
Removed from the role of advocate.
Removed from the role of advocates, that's it. Removed from the role of advocates.
Expunged so that in their minds, I no longer exist. Can you imagine? That is, you can see, for me, that is a tragedy that of their mindset, that somehow, if they remove me from the role, I will no longer exist.
It will silence you.
No, that I will no longer exist, that they can somehow change history by removing me from the role of advocate.
A very big one. Let's take a break now and then continue this conversation shortly. We are speaking with Faith Karume, Fatma Karume, I beg your pardon, talking about the issues in Tanzania. The Tanzanians are going to a general election later this month. 9:30, let's take a look at weather and traffic, and then this conversation continues. You can also text your comment 40127, or you can post your comment on social media, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice
All right,
FM.
still overcast in some parts of Nairobi, at least, is what we're looking at this morning. We'll see highs of 27 and lows of 14 today. Looking then into Nyeri, excuse me, partly cloudy conditions, highs of 24 and lows of 14. In Nakuru, sunny conditions will give way to rains in the afternoon. 24 the high and lows of 12. In Eldoret, it's mostly sunny at 17 degrees with highs of 22 and lows of 11. Kisumu, today, looking at sunny conditions this morning, going into rainy conditions in the afternoon with highs of 28 and lows of 19. Kakamega is mostly sunny at 21 degrees. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 14 with a chance of rains later on during the day. And in Mombasa today, where it's partly cloudy this morning, we will see highs of 30 and lows of 24. The same in Malindi, where there's a chance of showers in the afternoon. It's currently partly cloudy at 28. It'll go to a high of 29. Kampala is partly cloudy at 21 degrees, a chance of rain as well. It'll rise to 3 degrees, high of 24 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is mostly partly cloudy this morning at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 23. Johannesburg this morning is cloudy at 13 degrees, a chance of rain later, thunderstorms in fact, with highs of 18 and lows of 12. Let's move out into Lagos, where it's still partly cloudy at 29. We'll go to highs of 30 and lows of 23. Now into Asia, in mostly sunny conditions in Beijing at 21. The low will be 7 today. And in London, still experiencing rain at 12 degrees, and it's going to go well into the weekend with those wet conditions with highs of 14 and lows of 12. Paris also has a rain warning for most of the day into the weekend. Currently at 13 degrees, will go to highs of 15 and lows of 9. And wrap things up in New York today, where it's now Friday morning at 17 degrees and cloudy conditions. The high will be 19 with rains in the afternoon, coming down to lows of 12. Okay, so there's some traffic along the Eastern Bypass this morning. The exit to the Taj Mall along that bypass has been sealed off. So if you're heading in that direction, I don't know what's going to happen. Either they're going to have to open up that block so that people can get through, because now it has piled up. So I guess people didn't know that that particular part of the road was going to be closed. So that would be interesting. So it's causing some traffic right around there. On Mombasa Road, also not as bad as we saw it this morning. It's flowing a little bit more smoothly now. It is right around 9:30 through the day. The traffic is likely to build up, so you want to be careful and plan yourself ahead of time. Out of the city is looking good, as is on Thika Road today. It's flowing very smoothly, so we're very, very happy with no problems there. Problems, let us know. 40127. That's the SMS line. Or tweet us on SpiceFMKE.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
24 minutes to 10. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Also now looking at what's happening regionally and globally. This is what we do every new day. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. In the room is Eric Latif Nduoko CT Muga. Joining us on the line from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, is Fatma Karume. She is immediate former president of the Tanganyika Law Society. Fatma, as we went to a break, you were talking about some of the ideals that you now stand for. You got to a point where, as CT would say, you are now woke. You realized the system is functioning in such a way that we will never really move. You felt you're a hamster in a wheel. I just kept, running around in the same wheel. Do you feel like there are more people than you who feel the same way as you do? And how much longer do you expect that there will then be a critical mass of people who think the way you do, who can then effect change?
I think there are two separate things here. The running around in a wheel, sort of the hamster wheel analogy, is an analogy which I like to call. That is analogy that, let's say, if you're a professional, you have to look at it and say, am I in a hamster wheel? And if so, do I want to continue to be in this hamster wheel? Most people don't even realize they're in a hamster wheel. They just keep going round and round in a hamster wheel. However, that is not an analogy I would use for the normal Mwananchi. Why wouldn't I use that? For the normal Mwananchi, they're not in a hamster wheel. A profession is detached in a way from real life. The normal Mwananchi has to deal with real life every single day. The normal Mwananchi has to go out there and earn a living, and they're not in a profession. The normal Mwananchi, if the price of sugar goes up by 10%, that is a big impact on the normal Mwananchi. So the issue here is, one of when will the normal Mwananchi think this ain't working for me, and I need some change. And I think we discussed this a little bit. You asked me how long when we look back, what have we seen? What I have seen is an increased level of awareness amongst the people of the United Republic of Tanzania. How is this reflected? This is reflected in the in voter turnout, and also in the way people have been voting since 1995. 2015 was the lowest that CCM polled in votes since 1995, and that was when we had the introduction of democracy, multi-party democracy in Tanzania. I call it democracy in Tanzania. So for the first time, CCM polled.
I think we've lost the audio coming in from the phone. Let's see if we can still get her back. Madam Faith Karume, this name, Fatma Karume, who is speaking to us from Tanzania, giving us her experience, what's going on in the country, what's happening in the country. The issue of Tanzania is also that you have to look at it from mainland, and at the same time also look at it from the islands, the Zanzibari islands. The kind of political agitation that is, for example, on the islands may not be necessarily the same that's happening on the mainland. For example, on the islands, has CCM always been strong? No, it hasn't been strong. So what is happening now when it comes to, the system in Zanzibar? And I don't know whether we have her back now. John, try and get her back, please, on the line. What is happening when it comes to the situation in Zanzibar? Have you heard any vibe from Zanzibar? In terms of the candidates and all. The last time I spoke to a Zanzibari, he was a very outspoken gentleman, who was talking about the disgruntlement after the last general election in 2005. I was saying, like, in 2005, the kind of leadership that we were electing as the people of Zanzibar, we don't feel that that's the kind of, those are the people who were declared as winners of this election. And we still want more representation of Zanzibar with Zanzibari issues in the national government.
Right.
We don't feel like the issues of Zanzibar are well articulated when it comes to national politics. So I think Zanzibar is also another, hotspot. So to speak, in the matter of the conversation there. Yeah.
A lot of things having to be taken into consideration here when we talk about, a broken system as well. When we're looking to say that change needs to come about. And if there are more people who are feeling this, we really like to hear what the answer is as far as that's concerned, and where change essentially would need to come from. So, here we are with a situation whereby for the longest time it would appear as if it has been silent in Tanzania. If there's any kind of, opposition to any kind of change that comes about in the kind of politics that's happening in the country. And we hear that if there is a broken system, that there would be a part of the population that is asking for some kind of change when it comes to governance. And also the definition of what good governance would be. And I think we've not heard, vocal, loud voices come out asking for a different kind of rulership from what we see, or leadership from what we see is currently taking place in the government. It has not been loud. It hasn't been. Yeah. And that's why I'd be very interested to know why or who it is that backs up this same sentiment as well.
And Fatma Karume is back online. Hello.
Hi, they will keep disconnecting me.
Who's this? Who's doing this? Is it the system?
The system. bane of my life. I cannot have a conversation on the phone with anybody without it being disconnected.
Can I ask this question, Fatma? Have you ever considered perhaps that these sentiments that you clearly feel very strongly could be best expressed if you yourself entered the arena of elective politics?
You know, no. I think we have. I think the people of Tanzania need to understand that competitive politics in Tanzania are not competitive. It's stacked up against everybody else other than one side. So one side of the political spectrum has all the tools. The other side, everybody else doesn't have the tools. It's a stacked up game.
Are there people, I mean, and we start just looking from the periphery, Fatma, are there people in Tanzania who have the same sentiment that you do when it comes to a broken system of governance and are looking for good governance, as you have called it many times? Do you have a significant enough percentage of the population in Tanzania who feel this way? Because the voices have not been loud. If we're looking at it from where we are hearing it, it seems that there has been an okay with the way things have been happening in the country so far.
I think it's not an okay. I think it's fear. It's absolute terror. People are terrified. We've had journalists who've disappeared. We've had members of the opposition who've been shot in public. We have had members of the opposition legs broken, members of the opposition arms broken, imprisonments. There is an atmosphere of absolute terror. It's a terrorized nation.
I'd like to shift the conversation to Zanzibar and what's happening in Zanzibar. Of course, bearing in mind that you have your roots in Zanzibar as well. Your grandfather and father have been leaders of Zanzibar. What's the, let's say, the vibe of the people in Zanzibar when it comes to this upcoming election?
Zanzibar is a tragic case. It's a tragic case because if we go back to the 2015 election, before that, we have a government of national unity. We have to have a government, a coalition government, as a matter of our constitution. And this was introduced by my father's government in 2010 together with the opposition, whereby whoever wins, it's not a winner-take-all in Zanzibar. Whoever wins the election leads the government, but they will be a junior partner in the government, and this is anybody who takes in excess of 30% of the popular vote. Mm-hmm. Now, the party that takes in excess of 30% of the popular vote. It worked well between 2010 and 2015 when CCM took the leadership. But in 2015, when it looked evident that the opposition were going to take the leadership, the CCM decided that they were having none of this, and they annulled the elections, and then went on to have a second run at it, go at it in 2016 in February, at which point in time the opposition boycotted, and CCM took the government and ran it unconstitutionally for a period of 5 years. So what I fail to understand, even when in Africa the people say, please, can you just learn to share the cake? They don't want to share it. I don't get it. They still want the entire cake to themselves. This is madness. Because I have to say, the GNU, this Government of National Unity, the concept of coalition government, in Zanzibar, the people wanted it. There was a referendum. 63% of the people voted for an amendment to the Constitution so that we have a coalition government in all cases. Africans still don't want it, and it's not the people of Africa. It's the leaders, those who we have entrusted to lead us, are saying no. We want the cake all to ourselves. Why? For whose benefit?
So in the run-up now to this, to this election that's coming up in November, with that background, so what are the people of Zanzibar now thinking? What's the agitation? Do you have a stronger opposition? Is there a likelihood that CCM may not win it this time in Zanzibar?
Well, the likelihood that CCM is not going to win becomes bigger and bigger and bigger so long as they keep misbehaving. And this is, I want to make this absolutely clear to to anybody who's listening. Look, let's look at the Malawi Congress Party in Malawi. The Malawi Congress Party lost in the first multi-party elections in Malawi. And it handed over peacefully the reins of power. It lived another day. It came back. It's an election cycle. It's voter fatigue. After a while, the voters will vote you back into power. You need to be patient. You need to be good. You need to behave yourself. And you will come back. It took them 20, 25 years, or I don't know, 25 years to come back, but they came back. This is normal in democracies. But if you misbehave yourself, if you go out like a dying mule, kicking everybody and hurting people, they will never, ever forgive you. And you will not come back. An example is, I don't know much about Kenya, but CCM uses Kanu as an example of what could go terribly wrong. And you never come back into power. But Kanu did a lot of kicking as it was going out and damaged a lot of people. This people never will forget. And it'll be very difficult for you to come back into the rotational democracy.
Do you think that this election that's coming up on the 28th is going to usher in a new kind of dispensation, should things go against the incumbent?
Well, I dread to think what will happen on the 28th of October. It depends on how angry the people are. I think when you say, and I tell you this, you ask Mindu, why aren't we hearing more voices? Silence is a very funny thing. I'm driving around Dar es Salaam, and there is almost, the quiet before the storm. And when you don't hear negative stories, or you don't hear people coming to the fore talking, it doesn't mean they're not thinking. And when you say, well, why aren't we hearing these stories from Tanzania? Well, you're not hearing stories from Tanzania, Tanzanians saying we're really happy with the system either, are you? So the question is, what is going on? Why is there this silence? And how long will the silence last for? And how long will the people take the silence for? I don't know.
Do you believe there is credible alternative to the current leadership? If you look at the candidates that, the 20 or so candidates, do you believe that there's any of them who represent something that will be different from what CCM has provided in terms of leadership over the last decades?
Oh, yeah. I believe there is a credible alternative. Not only is it credible, a very good alternative, an alternative that would usher in a better future for Tanzania.
What does that future look like? Put that against what is currently happening. What does it look like as a future for Tanzania, on the side of the people and on the side of the makeup of government and governance as a whole?
That future for me looks like this: a new constitution, a constitution where the presidency is derobed of the immense powers that it has, decentralization of political power, return of power to the people of the country instead of this sort of usurpation of power by a political party. We need to deconstruct the judiciary from the executive, deconstruct the legislative from the executive. We need to deconstruct our armed forces, including the police and the army, from the executive, so that they work in accordance to a legal structure rather than simple orders. So this is all possible if we choose the right candidate.
Just going back to a question that Siti Muga asked you, I mean, looking at your pedigree, your grandfather, your father, they've all held leadership positions in the country. And you sound very much like somebody who is, alert and aware of how the system of government is working. You are alert and aware of what you think is wrong and what ought to be right. Do you see yourself throwing yourself in the ring anytime soon, taking over the reins? Like sort of inheriting this mantle.
I'm alert, being alert and aware and having the macro perspective has been the bane of my life. And that's probably why I realized that I'm in this hamster wheel and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Do I see myself going into politics? Not for the moment, because I think that having the pedigree I have, they take an absolute affront to me, saying you need to release the reins of power. You need to give it back to the people.
We want to thank you very much for speaking to us this morning, Fatma Karume, and asante sana for your agitation, your eloquence on the matters regarding Tanzania. We hope we catch up with you even before the election and soon after the election to basically just break down what has happened.
Yeah, I hope so. It's been a pleasure talking to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You have in Tanzania. But just before you go, just one other thing I want to say.
Yes.
I was always hoping that Tanzania, you had your 2007 moment in Kenya. And I was always hoping we are a people who like to discuss things. I was hoping that we would. I'm still hoping that we don't go into a 2007 moment.
Phew! I thought you were going to say the opposite.
I hope we can resolve this. Yeah. No, I'm hoping that we can resolve this amicably without a 2007 moment.
Asante sana.
Asanteni sana.
Asante. Bye.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Spice FM, spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
We're
right.
looking at things that are happening regionally and around the world. I'm going to read a tweet from Donald Trump, the Donald J. Trump, posted 2 hours ago. He said, "Tonight, the First Lady and I tested positive for COVID-19. We'll begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately. We will get through this together." When is the next debate? Was it going to be in the next 14 days?
He has 14 days to get better.
Yep. So the First Lady and the President of the United States have tested positive for COVID-19.
Everybody was waiting for this moment with bated breath. Everybody was waiting. He wasn't really sure about when he was going to, make it mandatory for masks to be worn, going about the country, having rallies here and there, having talks in public, and not really paying attention to the dangers that lurk because of COVID. And voila, on a day like this, like no other.
Hey. Yeah. So here we are. Let's see actually the global reaction to this.
It'll be very interesting to watch over the next couple of hours.
Yeah, all the stories that I'm seeing, for example, The Guardian says Trump's age and weight may cause COVID complications, according to doctors. The Independent says Trump considered high risk for coronavirus because of age and weight, according to the experts. So let's wait and see. Palmer Report says it's interesting that the Donald started hinting that he was going to boycott the next debate after he learned that Hope Hicks had exposed him to coronavirus. Hey, surely. Yeah.
Okay.
Coming to the top of the hour, CT, as we go to that, Ndu also wanted to throw in a comment about Tim Mafisi and the relevance to the proverb. I don't know. Start with the proverb, CT.
Yeah, okay. Uh-huh.
If you lose your girlfriend in a crowded bar, just start talking to a beautiful woman and she will reappear.
There's your cue, Ndu. Uh-huh.
So I'm wondering if the Mafisi on this side were the other women who don't want you talking to the beautiful woman, or can Mafisi be women as well?
Yeah.
As men? Just checking.
Yeah.
Actually,
it doesn't matter who has a girlfriend.
That's not where I was going.
The point is, whoever has a girlfriend, if you lose them, start talking to another.
all right, why don't we try with a boyfriend? If you lose your boyfriend in a crowded bar,
that one. Start talking to other handsome men, and the guy will appear. Okay.
Okay.
Best of luck with that. Oh, but maybe it's also possible. that
no,
could
no,
happen.
no. It's also true.
possible.
It's also
It's very possible.
That could happen. Yeah, there'll be some fighting here and there.
If you lose your position, just call a meeting and start talking to other.
And others will come.
And others will come for you.
Well, good morning. It's 10 o'clock. See you again on Monday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We wish you a lovely weekend.
Spice up your life.